The letter was never supposed to reach him. Kayla Varen had written it in rage, ink bleeding across parchment like wounds she'd carried for years. Accusations against the Alpha King who let border villages rot, while the capital gleamed. She'd called him a tyrant, a coward, a king who ruled from silk thrones while children starved in the dirt. She sealed it, burned it, or thought she did. But fate is a cruel architect. 3 weeks later, the Alpha King himself stood in her doorway, silent, lethal, eyes like winter stone. No soldiers, no mercy. Just him. And when he asked if she'd written those words, Kayla did something even she didn't expect. She said yes, and repeated every single one to his face. If you want to see how one woman's fury ignited a revolution and caught the attention of the most dangerous man in the kingdom, stay until the end. Hit like, drop your city in the comments, and let's dive in. The cabin smelled like wet wood and old smoke. Kayla had stopped trying to fix the roof weeks ago. Every patch she nailed down just gave the rain a new road inside. Water dripped into a tin bucket by the table, rhythmic and mocking, like the universe reminding her exactly where she stood in the pecking order. Nowhere. She crouched by the fire, stirring a thin stew that was mostly broth and hope. 2 potatoes, half an onion, a rabbit she'd trapped yesterday that was more bone than meat. It would feed her and her brother Aaron for tonight. Tomorrow was tomorrow's problem. Smells like sadness, Aaron muttered from the corner, wrapped in a blanket that was more holes than fabric. He was 16 but looked 12, too thin, too pale, ribs pressing against his shirt like prison bars. Smells like dinner, Kayla shot back, so shut up and be grateful. He grinned despite himself. That was the thing about Aaron. No matter how bad it got, he still had that grin. It reminded her of their mother, before the fever took her, before everything turned to ash. Outside, the wind howled through the pines. The border territories were always cold, always hungry, always forgotten. No one came here unless they were running from something or had nowhere else to go. Kayla was both. She ladled stew into 2 chipped bowls and handed one to Aaron. They ate in silence, the kind that wasn't comfortable but wasn't hostile either. Just empty, the kind that came from too many nights like this. Got a response from the grain distributor, Aaron said eventually, voice flat. Kayla looked up. And? They're not coming. Said the roads are too dangerous. Said we should have planned better. Planned better? Kayla laughed, sharp and bitter. Right. Because we chose to live in the middle of nowhere with no supplies and no help. They don't care, Kay. I know they don't care. She set her bowl down harder than she meant to. That's the problem. No one cares. The capital gets 3 harvests a year while we're eating bark soup and pretending it's fine. Aaron watched her with those 2 old eyes. You gonna write another letter? Kayla had written 12 letters in the past 6 months. To the regional governor, to the supply council, to anyone who might listen. She'd begged, she'd reasoned. She'd laid out the numbers, how many children were sick, how many elders had died last winter, how the border villages were bleeding out while the king's court threw festivals that cost more than her entire village made in a year. Not one response. Not one. No, Kayla said quietly. I'm done writing letters. But that was a lie. She'd already started the last one in her head. The one she'd never send. The one that said everything she wasn't supposed to say. Talked. She wrote it that night, after Aaron fell asleep. By candlelight that made her shadow dance like something feral on the walls, Kayla let every shred of anger pour out onto the page. To His Majesty, Alpha King Darien Wolf. You don't know my name, and you never will. I'm nobody. Just another forgotten wolf from a forgotten village on a forgotten border. But I'm going to tell you something no one else has the guts to say. You're a tyrant. Not the kind with blood on his hands, although maybe that would be more honest. No, you're the quiet kind. The kind who sits on a throne made of gold while children starve 50 miles away. The kind who throws banquets for nobles who wouldn't last a day out here. The kind who talks about unity and strength while letting entire communities collapse. I used to think you didn't know. That maybe you were just unaware. Surrounded by advisors who lied, by reports that sugar-coated everything. But that's a fantasy, isn't it? You know, you just don't care. We're not people to you. We're numbers, statistics, acceptable losses. So here's my number, 0. That's how much faith I have left in you. That's how much hope I have that anything will change. That's how many of us will survive the winter if things keep going like this. But you won't read this. And even if you do, you won't care. Because we're nothing, and you're everything. A wolf from nowhere. She read it back once, twice. Her hands shook with something between rage and terror. This wasn't a petition. It wasn't a plea. It was treason, plain and simple. If anyone in authority saw this, she'd be arrested, maybe executed. At minimum, blacklisted, which out here was a death sentence anyway. Kayla folded the letter, stared at it. Then she walked to the fire and dropped it in. The parchment curled, blackened, turned to ash. She watched it burn with a hollow satisfaction. At least she'd said it, even if no one would ever hear. 3 weeks later, someone knocked on her door. Not a polite knock, not a neighbor's knock. A single, deliberate strike that rattled the frame and sent ice down Kayla's spine. She was alone. Aaron had gone to check their traps in the eastern woods. The sun was setting, casting long shadows through the pines, and for a moment she considered not answering. Considered grabbing the knife under her mattress and waiting it out. But whoever was out there wasn't going away. Kayla opened the door. The man standing on her porch was tall, taller than anyone she'd ever seen. Broad-shouldered, dark-haired, with a jaw that looked carved from stone and eyes the color of a winter storm. He wore black from head to toe, no insignia, no decoration, just functional leather and steel. A sword hung at his hip like it belonged there. He didn't smile, didn't speak, just looked at her with an intensity that made her wolf stir uneasily beneath her skin. "Can I help you?" Kayla's voice came out steadier than she felt. "Kayla Varon." It wasn't a question. Her stomach dropped. "Who's asking?" "Someone who received a letter." The world tilted. No, that wasn't possible. She'd burned it. She'd watched it turn to ash. There was no way. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, moving to close the door. His hand caught it. Not rough, but immovable. "You wrote to the Alpha King, called him a tyrant, said he ruled from gold thrones while children starved." Kayla's heart hammered against her ribs. "I didn't send anything." "No, you didn't." His eyes never left hers. "But someone found it, and they thought I should see it." "Who are you?" But even as she asked, something in her gut already knew, the way he carried himself, the authority in every word, the absolute lack of fear. "Darian Wolf." A pause. "The Alpha King." Kayla stopped breathing. This wasn't real. Couldn't be real. The king didn't just show up at random cabins in the middle of nowhere. He didn't travel without guards, without fanfare, without... "You're lying." "Am I?" He tilted his head slightly, and she saw it then. The wolf in his eyes. Ancient, powerful, unmistakable. Her knees wanted to buckle, but she locked them. "What do you want?" "To know if you meant it." "Meant what?" "Every word you wrote." Kayla's mouth went dry. This was a trap. Had to be. He was here to arrest her, to make an example, to remind every border wolf what happened when you spoke out of turn. But something in his expression, something raw and almost curious, made her pause. "Yes," she said quietly. "I meant it." Darian Wolf didn't blink. "Say it to my face." "What?" "You wrote it in secret. Burned it before anyone could see. Say it now. To me. If you meant it." Kayla's pulse roared in her ears. Every instinct screamed at her to back down, to apologize, to beg for mercy. She was nobody. He was the king. This was suicide. But then she thought about Aaron, too thin and too tired. About the children in the village with hollow eyes. About 12 unanswered letters and a government that treated them like they didn't exist. And something inside her snapped. "You're a tyrant," Kayla said, voice shaking but clear. "You sit in your capital and pretend everything's fine while we're dying out here. You throw parties for nobles who've never missed a meal while we ration scraps. You talk about unity, but you've abandoned us. So yes, I meant every damn word." Silence. Darian Wolf stared at her for what felt like an eternity. His expression didn't change, didn't soften or harden, just absorbed. Then he turned and walked away. No threat, no response. Just gone, disappearing into the twilight like a ghost. Kayla slammed the door and locked it with trembling hands. Her whole body shook. She'd just told the Alpha King to his face that he was a failure. She'd signed her own death warrant. She sank to the floor, head in her hands, and waited for the soldiers to come. They didn't come that night, or the next day, or the day after that. But 1 week later, something else arrived. Kayla was chopping wood when she heard the wagons. 3 of them, heavy and laden, pulling up the dirt road that barely qualified as a path. Villagers emerged from their homes, wary and confused. The lead driver stepped down, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a supply manifest. Delivery for the border territories. Grain, medicine, firewood, blankets. Courtesy of the crown. Kayla's axe slipped from her hand. There's got to be a mistake, old Marcus said, limping forward. We didn't order anything. Can't afford it. No mistake, no charge. The woman handed him the manifest. King's orders direct from the capital. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Suspicion, disbelief, hope, fragile and dangerous. Kayla pushed through to the front. This is real? The woman met her gaze. Real as it gets, and there's more coming next month. His Majesty is implementing new distribution protocols for all border regions. Someone in the crowd started crying. Someone else laughed, sharp and disbelieving. Children ran to the wagons, eyes wide at the sight of actual food. Kayla stood frozen, her mind reeling. This didn't make sense. Kings didn't just change policy overnight. They didn't respond to angry letters from nobodies. Unless he'd actually listened. 2 days later, a second messenger arrived. This one wore formal livery, black and silver, the crown's colors. He handed Kayla a sealed envelope with her name written in elegant script. She opened it with numb fingers. Kayla Varen, your presence is requested at the royal court. Not as a prisoner, not as a petitioner, as a voice. You said no one listens to the border territories. Prove me wrong. Come to the capital. Speak your truth where it matters. The choice is yours. D.W. Aaron read over her shoulder, his breath catching. Kate, this is insane, she finished. This is insane. You're going, though, right? Kayla looked at the letter, at the signature, at the impossible opportunity being offered to her. She thought about the supplies that had arrived, the reforms that were starting, the fact that someone, the most powerful someone, had actually listened. And she thought about what would happen if she said no. If she let fear win. If she stayed silent when she'd finally been given a chance to speak. Yeah, Kayla said quietly. I'm going. The journey to the capital took 4 days by carriage, a carriage sent by the crown, comfortable and well-stocked, which felt surreal after years of walking everywhere. Kayla spent most of the trip staring out the window, watching the landscape shift from wild forest to cultivated fields to sprawling towns. The closer they got, the more her anxiety spiked. She didn't belong here. She was border-born, rough around the edges, with calloused hands and a vocabulary that would make courtiers faint. She'd been raised on survival, not etiquette. What was she supposed to do at a royal court? The carriage passed through the capital gates at sunset. Kayla pressed her face to the window, taking in the sheer scale of it. Stone buildings 5 stories high, streets paved with actual cobblestones, markets still bustling even as night fell. Lanterns lit up everywhere, casting a warm glow that felt alien after years of rationing candles. People here looked soft, well-fed, clean, like they'd never missed a meal or wondered if winter would kill them. Resentment coiled in her chest. The palace loomed ahead, all white marble and silver spires, impossibly grand. Guards flanked the entrance, their armor polished to a mirror shine. Kayla's carriage rolled through gates that could have fit her entire village inside them. A steward met her at the entrance, a thin man with a perpetually pinched expression, like he'd just smelled something unpleasant. Miss Varen, I'm Steward Corvin. I'll show you to your quarters. My quarters? Yes. The king has arranged accommodations for you in the East Wing. She followed him through hallways that seemed to stretch forever. All marble floors and gilded frames and tapestries that probably cost more than she'd earn in a lifetime. Servants moved like ghosts, silent and efficient. Corvin stopped at a door. Your room. Dinner's at 7. Someone will fetch you. Wait. But he was already gone. Kayla pushed open the door and froze. The room was bigger than her cabin, bigger than most buildings in her village. A four-poster bed dominated one wall, draped in silk that shimmered in the lamplight. A vanity. A sitting area. Windows overlooking gardens that looked like paintings. She walked in slowly, half expecting someone to jump out and tell her this was a mistake. On the bed sat a folded dress, deep green velvet with silver embroidery. A note lay beside it. For tonight. If you want it. D.W. Kayla picked up the dress. It was beautiful. Impractical. Definitely not something she'd ever wear by choice. She looked at her travel-stained clothes, at the luxury surrounding her, at the impossible situation she'd walked into. Then she hung the dress in the closet and pulled out the one decent shirt she'd brought from home. If they wanted her voice, they'd get it, but they'd get the real her, not some dressed-up version. Dinner was a disaster. The dining hall was massive, with a table that could seat 50 people. Tonight, only a dozen were present, nobles and advisors, all dressed in silk and jewels, all watching Kayla like she was a bug that had crawled into their soup. Darian sat at the head of the table, expression unreadable. He gestured to the empty seat on his right. Kayla sat, acutely aware of every eye on her. "Lady Varen," a woman across the table said, voice dripping with false sweetness. "What a unique surprise. We so rarely have guests from the outer territories." "I'm not a lady," Kayla said. "Just Kayla." The woman's smile tightened. "Of course. How refreshing." An older man, some duke or lord, Kayla couldn't keep track, leaned forward. "Tell us, Miss Varen, what brings you to court? Surely not just the ambiance." "The king invited me." "How generous of his majesty." The duke's tone said otherwise. "And what, pray tell, could a border wolf possibly contribute to royal policy?" The table went quiet. Kayla set down her fork carefully. Perspective. The kind you don't get when you've never gone hungry. Someone choked on their wine. "How bold," another noble muttered. "How rude," someone else whispered. Darian's voice cut through the murmurs like a blade. "She's right." Everyone froze. He looked around the table slowly, his gaze pinning each person in turn. "When's the last time any of you visited the border territories? When's the last time you saw what life looks like outside the capital?" Silence. "That's what I thought." Darian turned to Kayla. "Tell them." She blinked. "Tell them what?" "Why you wrote that letter. What it's really like out there." Kayla's throat tightened. Every instinct told her to stay quiet, to not make waves, to survive this dinner and disappear. But then she looked at Darian, at the king who'd actually shown up, who'd sent supplies, who'd brought her here, and she realized he wasn't testing her. He was giving her a platform. "It's like being invisible," Kayla said quietly. The table leaned in despite themselves. "You wake up every day wondering if this is the day you won't have enough food, if this is the winter that kills someone you love. You write letters begging for help and no one responds. You watch children get sick from diseases that have cures, just not out there, and you realize that to everyone who matters, you don't exist." She looked around the table, meeting each uncomfortable gaze. "You want to know why I called the king a tyrant? Because, from where I stand, that's what it looks like. A kingdom that takes care of its center and lets its edges rot." A woman in diamonds opened her mouth, probably to object, but Darian spoke first. "And that changes now." The nobles exchanged glances. "Your Majesty," the Duke started, "we're expanding border patrols, increasing supply shipments, establishing medical outposts in every major village, and we're going to fund it by cutting court expenditures." Darian's tone left no room for argument. "Starting with next month's gala." Outrage rippled around the table. "But the gala is tradition. It's a waste of resources," Darian said flatly. "This discussion is over." He stood, and everyone hastily followed suit. "Kayla, walk with me." She followed him out of the dining hall, leaving a table full of shocked nobles in their wake. They walked through the palace gardens in silence. The air was cool, fragrant with night-blooming flowers. Kayla's head spun from the dinner, from the confrontation, from everything. "You didn't have to defend me," she finally said. "I didn't defend you. I agreed with you." Darian stopped by a fountain, his profile sharp in the moonlight. They needed to hear it. They hate me now. They already hated you. Now they're afraid of you. That's better. Kayla laughed despite herself. Is that how you lead? By making everyone afraid? No. That's how I make change. He turned to face her. Fear is temporary. Respect is earned. You're here because you've earned mine. Her breath caught. I told you that you were a tyrant. You told me the truth. No one else would. Something in his eyes softened. Do you know how rare that is? Everyone here lies. They flatter, they scheme, they say whatever they think I want to hear. But you, he shook his head. You said what needed to be said, even when it terrified you. I thought you'd have me executed. I considered it, he admitted, and she couldn't tell if he was joking. But then I realized you weren't wrong. I had been ruling from a distance, making decisions based on reports that painted pretty pictures. I'd forgotten what it meant to actually see my kingdom. So you're fixing it. I'm trying. He looked at her seriously. But I need your help. Kayla's heart hammered. What kind of help? Stay. Not just for a visit. Stay at court. Be my advisor on border affairs. Tell me when I'm wrong. Push back when I make stupid decisions. Be the voice for people who don't have one. I'm not qualified. You're the most qualified person I've met. Darian stepped closer. You've lived it. You understand what's at stake, and you're brave enough to say the hard things. Kayla stared at him. This was insane. She had no training, no education, no idea how to navigate court politics. She'd be destroyed within a week. But then she thought about the supplies that had arrived, the reforms starting to happen, the chance to actually make a difference. Okay, she whispered. I'll stay. Darian smiled, a real smile, rare and transformative. Good. As they walked back toward the palace, Kayla tried to ignore the way her pulse quickened when he looked at her, tried to pretend she didn't notice how his presence made her wolf settle in a way nothing else did. This was a job, a responsibility, nothing more. The first week at court was brutal. Kayla attended council meetings where she was talked over, ignored, or dismissed outright. She sat through policy discussions where nobles used words like fiscal optimization to mean let the poor starve. She watched deals get made behind closed doors, alliances shift like sand, and corruption hide behind polite smiles. And every night, she went back to her too-big room and wondered what the hell she was doing here. But she didn't leave, because every time she wanted to quit, something would happen. A supply shipment she'd suggested would get approved. A medical outpost would open in a village she'd named. Small victories, but they mattered. Darian backed her on everything. When nobles pushed back, he shut them down. When they tried to undermine her, he elevated her voice. It was strange having someone in her corner, having someone who actually listened. They're calling you my pet project, he told her one evening as they reviewed supply routes in his study. Kayla snorted. Creative. Does it bother you? Should it? I don't know. You tell me. He looked up from the maps. This isn't easy. I know that. They're never going to accept you. I'm not here to be accepted. I'm here to help people who need it. She met his gaze. That's all that matters. Something shifted in his expression. Respect, maybe, or something deeper. You're stronger than you think. I'm terrified every day. Bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite it. He stood, moving around the desk. You're doing that every day. Don't discount it. Kayla felt heat rise to her cheeks. She looked away, focusing on the maps. We should extend the northern route. The mountain villages get cut off every winter. Darian smiled slightly, letting her change the subject. Agreed. I'll authorize it tomorrow. As she left his study that night, Kayla couldn't shake the feeling that something was building between them. Something dangerous and complicated and absolutely forbidden. He was the Alpha King. She was nobody. This could never work. The breaking point came on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. Kayla was in the library, reviewing medical supply requests, when someone cleared their throat behind her. She turned to find a woman watching her, tall, elegant, with ice blonde hair and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. You must be the famous Kayla Varin. The woman extended a hand. I'm Celine Ashford, High Council member. We haven't been formally introduced. Kayla shook her hand warily. Nice to meet you. Is it? Celine sat uninvited. I'll be honest, Miss Varin. I'm curious. What exactly is your relationship with the king? I'm his advisor on border affairs. Is that all? Kayla's wolf bristled. What are you implying? Nothing untoward. I'm just wondering how someone with no qualifications, no training, and no standing ended up with such influence. Celine's smile sharpened. It's remarkable, really. Almost like you have some kind of personal hold on him. I earned my place here. Did you? Celine leaned back. Or did you manipulate a king who was looking for a project, a noble cause, to make himself feel better about his failures? You don't know what you're talking about, don't I? Celine's eyes glittered. I've known Darian Wolf for years, watched him lead, and I've never seen him so distracted, so willing to upset the entire court system for one person. He's fixing a broken system. He's destabilizing a functional one. Because of you. Celine stood. I don't know what game you're playing, but it won't work. You're a phase, a distraction, and when he gets bored, you'll go back to wherever you came from and things will return to normal. She left before Kayla could respond. Kayla sat frozen, Celine's words echoing in her mind. Was that what this was? A project? A way for Darian to feel like he was making a difference without actually changing anything fundamental? No. She'd seen his commitment, seen the reforms taking shape. But doubt had been planted, and it grew roots quickly. That night, she confronted him. Darian was in his private chambers when she knocked, technically inappropriate, definitely breaking protocol, but she was past caring. He opened the door in shirt sleeves, surprise flickering across his face. Kayla, what's wrong? Am I a project to you? He blinked. What? Celine Ashford said you're only keeping me around to make yourself feel better, that I'm a distraction, that when you get bored, I'll be gone. Darian's jaw tightened. Celine said that. Is it true? No. He pulled her inside and shut the door. Kayla, listen to me. You're not a project. You're not a distraction. You're the first person in years who's told me the truth about what's happening in my kingdom. But what if she's right? What if you're changing things? He gripped her shoulders gently. Real things. Those medical outposts? Those supply routes? They're saving lives. Because of you. Tears burned in Kayla's eyes. I don't know if I can keep doing this. They hate me here. Every day is a fight, and I don't know if I'm strong enough. You're the strongest person I know. I'm scared. So am I. His voice dropped. Do you think this is easy for me? Having you here, knowing how hard it is, watching them tear you apart? His hand slid down to her arms. But I need you. The kingdom needs you. And I'm not letting you quit because Celine Ashford is threatened by you. Kayla looked up at him, at the intensity in his eyes, at the way he was looking at her like she mattered, and something inside her cracked wide open. Darian. He kissed her. It wasn't planned, wasn't calculated, just raw and desperate and real, his hands in her hair, her fingers gripping his shirt, everything else falling away until it was just them. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, reality crashed back in. That was, Kayla started. A mistake, Darian finished, but he didn't let go of her. A huge mistake. Definitely. They stared at each other. Then he kissed her again, slower this time, like he was memorizing the moment. This complicates things, Kayla whispered against his mouth. Everything about you complicates things. He pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. But I don't care anymore. You're the king. I'm nobody. You're not nobody. Not to me. His thumb traced her cheek. Stay, please. Not as an advisor, not as a project, as whatever this is. Kayla's heart hammered. This was insane, dangerous, would destroy whatever credibility she'd built. But when she looked at him, she saw something she'd never expected to find. Someone who saw her, really saw her, not as a tool or a cause, but as a person. Okay, she breathed. I'll stay. And for the first time since arriving at the Capitol, Kayla felt like maybe, just maybe, she wasn't alone in this fight. The next morning, Kayla woke up in her own bed, alone, with the kiss still burning on her lips and panic clawing at her chest. What had she done? She'd kissed the Alpha King. More than that, she'd agreed to stay, not as an advisor, but as something undefined and dangerous, something that would paint a target on her back the size of the entire kingdom. The servants knocked at dawn with breakfast she couldn't eat. Her stomach twisted as she dressed, choosing practical clothes over the court dresses that hung unused in her closet. If she was going to face the fallout, she'd do it as herself. She found Darian in the war room, bent over a tactical map with 3 generals. He looked up when she entered, and something passed between them, heat and recognition and a shared secret that felt both thrilling and terrifying. "Miss Varen." His voice was formal, controlled. "Good timing. We're discussing border patrol routes." The generals looked at her with barely concealed disdain. She'd seen that look before. Would probably see it every day for the rest of her time here. "The northern pass needs reinforcement," she said, moving to the table. "Raiders have been hitting supply caravans there for months." "We don't have the manpower," one general said dismissively. "Then pull troops from the southern garrison. They're overstaffed and underutilized." "You can't just—" She's right. Darian's finger traced the map. Southern border's been quiet for 2 years. Reallocate half the garrison north. Make it happen. The generals exchanged looks but didn't argue. They knew better. As the meeting wrapped up, Darian caught her eye. "My office. 10 minutes." She waited, heart hammering, until the room cleared. Then she slipped down the corridor to his private office, checking over her shoulder like a criminal. He was waiting by the window when she entered. The door had barely closed before he pulled her to him. "This is reckless," she breathed between kisses. "I know. Someone's going to find out." "Probably." His mouth moved to her neck. "Do you want to stop?" She should. Every logical part of her brain screamed that this was suicide, but her body had other ideas melting into him like she'd been made for this. "No," she admitted. He pulled back just enough to look at her. "We'll be careful. No public displays, nothing that gives them ammunition." "They already hate me." "Then let them hate you for the right reasons." His thumb brushed her jaw. "For changing their world. Not for this." A knock at the door sent them flying apart. Darian moved behind his desk while Kayla grabbed a random book from the shelf, pretending to study it. "Enter," Darian called. Steward Corvin poked his head in. "Your Majesty, the council is waiting." "Tell them 5 minutes." Corvin's eyes flicked to Kayla, suspicious but not certain. He left without comment. "We should go," Kayla said. "Not yet." Darian stood, straightening his collar. "Tonight, my private quarters. Midnight. That's dangerous. Everything about this is dangerous." He moved past her to the door, pausing just long enough to murmur, "But I don't care anymore." Then he was gone, leaving her standing there with a racing heart and the terrible knowledge that she'd just jumped off a cliff with no idea if there was water below. The council meeting was worse than usual. Celine Ashford sat across from Kayla, watching her like a hawk studying prey. Every time Kayla spoke, Celine had a counter-argument. Every suggestion was met with thinly veiled contempt. "The Border Medical Initiative is costing too much," Celine said smoothly. "Perhaps we should reconsider the scope." "People are dying," Kayla shot back. "How much is too much when lives are at stake?" "Everything has a cost, Miss Varen. Resources are finite." "Then maybe we should cut the discretionary fund for court entertainment. That would cover 3 more outposts." Gasps around the table. Celine's smile turned glacial. "How delightfully naive. The court serves a function beyond your comprehension." "Really? Because from where I sit, it's just rich people throwing parties while others starve." "Enough!" Darian's voice cut through the tension. "The medical initiative continues as planned. Celine BM. If you have concerns about funding, bring me a formal proposal. Otherwise, this discussion is closed." Celine's jaw tightened, but she nodded. As the meeting adjourned, she cornered Kayla in the hallway. "You're making a mistake," Celine said quietly. "Which one?" "I make several daily, apparently." "Don't play coy. I see the way he looks at you, the way you look at him." Celine stepped closer. "Whatever you think is happening between you two, it won't end well." Kayla's blood ran cold. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Of course you don't." Celine's smile was razor sharp. "But let me give you some advice, Border Wolf.
Kings don't marry commoners, they use them. And when they're done, they discard them. Is that what happened to you? Celine's expression flickered. Just for a second, something raw and wounded showed through. Then it was gone, replaced by ice. Be careful, Miss Varen. You're playing a game you don't understand.
And in this court, the price of losing is everything. She swept away, leaving Kayla standing there with a sick feeling in her stomach. That night, Kayla climbed the servants' stairs to Darian's private quarters, heart hammering with every step. This was insane. If anyone saw her, his door opened before she could knock. He pulled her inside quickly, checking the hallway before closing it. "You came," he said, almost surprised. "Did you think I wouldn't?" "Hoped. Didn't assume." He looked at her in the lamplight. No crown, no formal clothes, just a man in plain shirt and trousers. "Drink?" "Sure." He poured 2 glasses of whiskey, handed her one. They sat by the fire, close but not touching, and for a moment it felt almost normal. "Celine cornered me today," Kayla said. Darian's expression darkened. "What did she say?" "That you'll use me and discard me, that I'm playing a game I don't understand." She took a sip, letting the burn ground her. "Is she right?" "About which part?" "Any of it." Darian set down his glass. "Celine and I, there was something, years ago."
Before I was king, it didn't end well. You loved her? I thought I did. Turned out she loved power more than she loved me. He looked into the fire. When my father died and I took the throne, she expected to become queen. I chose duty instead. She's never forgiven me. So now she hates anyone who gets close to you. Essentially, he turned to her. But you're not her. And this, whatever this is, it's not what that was. What is it then? I don't know. His honesty was disarming. I know I can't stop thinking about you. I know you challenge me in ways no one else does. I know that when you're in a room, everything else fades out. He reached for her hand. Is that enough? It should have been a red flag. The uncertainty, the impossibility. But looking at him, at the vulnerability in his eyes, Kayla found she didn't care about logic anymore. For now, she whispered. He kissed her softly, reverently, like she was something precious. They moved to the couch, then to his bed, and for a few stolen hours, the rest of the world ceased to exist. The next 3 weeks were a careful dance of public propriety and private passion. By day, Kayla attended councils, pushed reforms, and battled nobles who saw her as an upstart threat. By night, she slipped through hidden corridors to Darian's chambers, where they built something fragile and real in the shadows. But secrets have a way of escaping, no matter how carefully you guard them. It started with whispers. Servants who noticed her absence from her room. Guards who saw shadows where they shouldn't be. Courtiers who caught looks that lasted too long. Then Aaron arrived. Kayla was reviewing supply manifests when a servant announced her brother. She nearly knocked over her chair rushing to the door. Aaron stood in the hallway looking gaunt and exhausted, his clothes travel-stained and his face pale. "Aaron, what are you doing here?" "We need to talk." His voice was tight. "Somewhere private." She led him to her chambers, dread pooling in her stomach. "What happened?" "Raiders hit the eastern villages last week. Bad. They burned through 3 settlements before the new patrols stopped them." Aaron's hands shook. 23 dead, Kay, including Marcus, the old man who doubted the supply delivery, who'd lived through 4 harsh winters. Gone. "No," Kayla breathed. "It gets worse. The council's blaming the reallocation, saying pulling troops from the south left the east vulnerable." Aaron met her eyes. "They're blaming you." "That's not... We reinforced the north, but we didn't abandon..." "I know, but that's the story circulating. That you convinced the king to weaken defenses because you don't understand military strategy." He grabbed her shoulders. "Kay, they're using this against you, against everything you've built." Kayla's mind raced. The troop reallocation had been sound. She'd verified it with 3 generals. Someone had deliberately left the eastern border exposed. "It's sabotage," she said. "What?" "Someone wanted those villages hit. Wanted people dead. So they could blame me." Rage boiled in her chest.
Who's leading the charge? Councilwoman Ashford. She's calling for your removal from all advisory positions. Of course. Celine had warned her, had promised consequences. Now people were dead because of it. I need to see Darian. The king's in a closed war council. They've been meeting for hours. Aaron hesitated. Kate, are you and him? She froze. What? Come on. I'm not blind. The way you talk about him, the way you disappear at night. He wasn't angry, just worried. Please tell me you're being careful. It's complicated. It's dangerous. If they find out, I know. She pulled away, pacing. But that's not the priority right now. We need to fix the eastern border before more people die. How? I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out. She had to. The War Council finally adjourned at sunset. Kayla caught Darian in the corridor, pulling him into an empty room before anyone could see. 23 people are dead, she said without preamble. His face was already haggard. I know. Someone sabotaged the eastern defenses. I know that too. He rubbed his eyes. The general who was supposed to establish new patrol routes deliberately delayed deployment. He's been arrested. On whose orders? We don't know yet, but he's connected to Celine's faction. Darian looked at her. This is my fault. I should have verified the deployment personally. You can't oversee every detail. When it concerns your safety, yes, I can. His voice was raw. They're coming for you, Kayla. Using this tragedy as ammunition. Celine's drafting a formal motion to have you removed. Let her. I'll fight it. With what? Dead villagers are powerful evidence. Even if we prove sabotage, the damage is done. You're vulnerable. Then what do you suggest? Leave, temporarily. Go back to the border territories. Let things cool down. Kayla stared at him. You're sending me away. I'm protecting you. By giving them what they want? She stepped back. No, I'm not running. Kayla, those people died because someone wanted to destroy me. If I leave now, their deaths mean nothing. I'm staying, I'm fighting, and I'm going to prove who did this. It's too dangerous. Everything's dangerous. You said that yourself. She met his eyes. I'm not leaving you to face this alone. Something in his expression cracked. You're impossible. You're infuriating. He pulled her close, pressing his forehead to hers. If anything happens to you, it won't. I'm harder to kill than I look. They stood there for a long moment, the weight of everything pressing down on them. Then voices echoed in the corridor, and they broke apart, slipping out separately, like thieves. Celine's motion came 3 days later. The emergency council session was packed. Nobles, generals, advisors, all gathered to witness Kayla's downfall. Celine stood at the front, impeccably dressed, holding a formal document. We are here to address a grave matter, she began. The recent tragedy in the Eastern Territories resulted from military decisions advised by someone with no training, no experience, and no business influencing strategy. Her eyes found Kayla. 23 lives were lost because Miss Varen convinced His Majesty to reallocate forces based on guesswork rather than expertise. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. This council moves to remove Kayla Varen from all advisory positions and revoke her access to military planning. Seconded, another councilman said immediately. Darian's jaw was tight, but he remained silent. Protocol demanded he let the council speak before intervening. Kayla stood. Her legs felt like water, but she locked them. May I respond? You may not, Celine said. This is a council matter. Let her speak. Darian's voice cut through the room. Celine's smile thinned, but she nodded. Kayla walked to the center of the room. Every eye was on her, judging, condemning, waiting for her to fail. Councilwoman Ashford is right about one thing, Kayla said. I have no formal training, no military background. I'm just a border wolf who wrote an angry letter. She let that sink in. But I know something none of you seem to understand. I know what it's like to be forgotten. This isn't about your feelings, someone started. It's about intent, Kayla interrupted. The troop reallocation was sound. 3 generals approved it. Patrols were supposed to be established in the east before the southern withdrawal. But someone delayed that deployment. Deliberately. She looked at Celine. Someone wanted those villages hit. Wanted people dead, so they could use it against me. That's a serious accusation, Celine said coldly. Then let's investigate, fully, transparently. Kayla pulled out a document, one she'd spent all night preparing with Aaron's help. I have testimony from Border Patrol commanders, timeline discrepancies, evidence that orders were countermanded without the king's knowledge. Celine's composure flickered. If this council wants to remove me, fine. But don't pretend it's about competence. It's about control. Kayla looked around the room. You're terrified that someone like me, someone without a title or bloodline, might actually change things, might expose how broken this system is. You overstep. I speak truth. Kayla's voice rang out. And if that makes you uncomfortable, maybe you should ask yourselves why. Silence. Then Darian stood. There will be a full investigation into the eastern border failures. Until it's complete, no motions against Miss Varen will proceed. This session is adjourned. He walked out without looking back. The room erupted in chaos. Kayla found him an hour later in the stables, his refuge when court became unbearable. He was brushing down his black stallion with methodical precision. That was reckless, he said without turning around. It was necessary. You made enemies of half the council. I already had them. She leaned against the stall door. Did I overstep? Probably. He finally looked at her. But you were right. Someone orchestrated this, and we're going to find out who. Then what? Then they pay. His expression was hard. No one uses my kingdom as a game board, especially not to hurt you. Something warm bloomed in Kayla's chest. You can't protect me from everything. Watch me try. He set down the brush, moving closer. You scared me today, standing in front of that council, making yourself a target. I'm already a target. A bigger one. His hand cupped her face. Promise me you'll be careful. I promise nothing, you know that. He kissed her hard, desperate, like he was trying to memorize her. When they broke apart, both breathing heavy, reality crashed back. We should go, Kayla whispered. Someone might see. Let them. Darian. I'm tired of hiding, tired of pretending you don't matter to me. His eyes burned into hers. After the investigation, after we clear your name, I'm making a formal announcement. Her heart stopped. What kind of announcement? The kind that tells everyone you're under my protection. Officially. That'll cause a war. Then let them fight. He pulled her against him. I'm done choosing between my kingdom and you. I'll find a way to have both. Kayla wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that love could somehow survive in a place built on politics and power. But something in her gut whispered that storms were coming, ones that would test them beyond anything they'd faced so far. She kissed him again, softer this time, memorizing the feel of him, just in case. The investigation moved quickly once Darian personally oversaw it. Documents were subpoenaed, generals were interrogated, communication logs were pulled, and piece by piece a conspiracy emerged. Celine hadn't acted alone. She'd had help from 3 council members, 2 generals, and a network of nobles who saw Kayla as a threat to the established order. They deliberately delayed eastern border reinforcements, knowing raiders would strike. The deaths weren't collateral damage, they were the point. When the evidence went public, the court exploded. We demand accountability, a duke shouted during the emergency session. Those responsible will face justice, Darian said coldly, including council members. Celine stood, her composure finally cracking. You're destroying this council for a common wolf who seduced her way into power? Careful. Darian's voice dropped to something lethal. You're already facing conspiracy charges. Don't add slander. It's not slander if it's true. Everyone knows she's your mistress, that you've compromised everything for... Get out. The 2 words were quiet, but absolute. Celine's face went white. Your Majesty, you orchestrated the deaths of my people to settle a personal vendetta. You betrayed your oath, your position, and your kingdom. Darian stood, power radiating from him. You're stripped of your title, your lands, and your seat on this council. Effective immediately. Guards, remove her. 2 guards moved forward. Celine looked around desperately, searching for allies, but found only turned faces. As they escorted her out, she locked eyes with Kayla. This isn't over, she hissed. Then she was gone.
The room sat in stunned silence. "Anyone else?" Darian asked quietly. No one moved. "Good. This council is adjourned." That night, Kayla couldn't sleep. She should have felt victorious. Justice had been served. Celine was gone. The conspiracy was exposed. But something felt wrong, like a sword hanging overhead, just waiting to drop. She was pacing her room when the knock came. Not a normal knock. Sharp, urgent, panicked. Kayla opened the door to find a messenger, young and terrified. "Miss Varen, you need to come, now." "What happened?" "Your brother. There's been an attack." Her blood turned to ice. "Where?" "The Eastern Garrison. Raiders hit again. Bigger force this time. Multiple casualties. The messenger's voice broke. "He's alive, but it's bad. They're bringing him to the infirmary." Kayla ran. She sprinted through corridors, downstairs, bursting into the infirmary to find chaos. Wounded soldiers on cots, healers rushing between them, blood everywhere. And there, on a table in the corner, lay Aaron. He was pale as death, breathing shallow, his side wrapped in bandages that were already soaked through with red. "No, no, no!" Kayla grabbed his hand. "Aaron, stay with me." His eyes fluttered open, unfocused. "Kay? I'm here. You're going to be fine." "Ambush. They knew we were coming." His breath hitched. "Not random. Someone told them." A healer pushed Kayla aside. "Miss, please, we need to work." "Is he going to make it?" The healer's face said everything. Kayla stumbled back, her world tilting. This couldn't be happening. Not Aaron, not her brother, not the only family she had left. Darian appeared beside her, pulling her against him. "What happened?" "Raiders. They knew where he'd be. Someone," her voice cracked. "Someone tipped them off." "Who?" "I don't know." Tears streamed down her face. "But I'm going to find out. And I'm going to kill them." He held her tighter. "We'll find them, together." But even as he said it, Kayla felt something shift inside her. Something cold and hard and absolutely merciless. Celine had struck at her through her village. Now someone had struck at her family. And whoever was responsible was about to learn that backing a wolf into a corner was the worst mistake they could make. Aaron survived the night, but barely. Kayla stayed by his bedside, refusing to leave even when exhaustion pulled at her. Darian brought her food she didn't eat, water she barely drank. He didn't try to make her leave, just sat with her in silence. "I should have made him stay at the capital," Kayla whispered. "He wouldn't have listened. He's your brother. He almost died because of me. He almost died because someone's trying to destroy you by hurting people you love." Darian's hand covered hers. "This isn't your fault." "Feels like it." Around dawn, Aaron's eyes opened fully for the first time. "Kay?" His voice was rough. She leaned forward. "I'm here." "You look terrible." "You're one to talk." She tried to smile, but it wobbled. "What happened out there?" "Patrol to check the new eastern outposts. Should have been routine." He coughed, wincing. "But they were waiting. Hit us hard and fast, like they knew exactly where we'd be and when." Did you see who was leading them?" "No, but one of them, right before he ran, he laughed and said, 'Message delivered.'" Aaron's eyes found hers. This wasn't about resources or territory. This was personal. Kayla's hands clenched. "Did anyone else survive?" "4 of us, the rest—" His voice trailed off. "More deaths, more blood, all because she'd dared to challenge the system." "I'm ending this," Kayla said quietly. "How?" "I don't know yet. But whoever's behind this, whoever ordered that attack, they're going to pay." Darian squeezed her shoulder. "We'll figure it out." But Kayla was already planning, already calculating. She'd played by their rules long enough, time to play by hers. The breakthrough came 2 days later from an unexpected source. A servant, middle-aged, nervous, wringing her hands, requested audience with the king. She was brought to Darian's office where Kayla happened to be reviewing border reports. "Your Majesty," the woman said, curtsying awkwardly. I have information about the raids." Darian leaned forward. "Speak."
I serve in Councilwoman Ashford's household, or served, since she was dismissed. The woman's voice shook. Before the guards took her, she destroyed documents, but she missed one. I found it in the fireplace, only partially burned. She produced a singed piece of parchment. Kayla grabbed it, scanning the fragmented text. Most was illegible, but certain words stood out. Eastern Garrison, brother, permanent removal, and at the bottom a partial signature. Not Celine's, someone else's. Do you recognize this handwriting? Darian asked. The servant nodded. Lord Matthias Crane. He visited the councilwoman frequently. They had private meetings. Matthias Crane, High Council member, war advisor, one of the most powerful men in the kingdom, and apparently a traitor. Where is he now? Kayla's voice was ice. His estate, I believe. He hasn't attended court since the councilwoman's arrest. Darian stood. Summon the royal guard. We're bringing him in. No. Kayla's hand caught his arm. If you arrest him formally, he'll hide behind lawyers and protocol. It'll take months to prosecute, and meanwhile, more people die. What are you suggesting? She met his eyes. Let me handle this. My way. Kayla, he tried to kill my brother, succeeded in killing 23 others. He's orchestrated everything to destroy me. Her jaw set. I want 5 minutes alone with him. That's all. I can't authorize that. You're not. I'm going anyway. She headed for the door. Kayla, wait. She stopped, turned back. You said you'd find a way to have both, your kingdom and me. But right now, I need you to let me be what I am. Not a courtier, not an advisor, a wolf who protects her pack. Darian studied her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. Take Marcus and Finn. Don't kill him. We need him to testify. Can't promise anything. Try. She kissed him quickly, fiercely. Then she was gone. Matthias Crane's estate sat on the outskirts of the capital, sprawling, expensive, surrounded by walls that screamed privilege. Kayla approached after dark with 2 royal guards who'd volunteered for unofficial business. They scaled the wall easily, bypassing patrols, and slipped through a servant's entrance. The manor was mostly dark. They found Crane in his study, packing documents into a trunk, planning to run. Kayla kicked the door open. Crane spun, his hand going for a knife on the desk. Marcus had a crossbow on him before he could reach it. Going somewhere? Kayla asked. Crane's face cycled through shock, fear, then forced calm. Miss Varin, this is breaking and entering. You ordered raiders to ambush my brother. I have no idea what... Kayla threw the burned document on his desk. Your handwriting, your signature, your conspiracy. His composure cracked slightly. You can't prove anything. Don't need to prove it, just need you to admit it. She moved closer, her wolf rising. Why? What did I ever do to you? You're chaos, Crane spat. An uneducated nobody who seduced the king and convinced him to dismantle everything we've built. You're dangerous. I'm dangerous, Kayla laughed, sharp and bitter. I tried to help people. You murdered them. Collateral damage in a necessary war. His chin lifted. The king has lost perspective. Someone had to restore order. By killing innocents? By removing you. Once you're gone, discredited or dead, he'll return to reason. See you for what you are. And what's that? A mistake. Kayla's fist connected with his jaw before she consciously decided to swing. Crane went down hard, blood streaming from his mouth. Kay, Marcus warned. She ignored him, hauling Crane up by his collar. My brother almost died. 23 people did die. Because of you. Worth it, Crane wheezed. To save the kingdom from you. She hit him again. And again. Rage pouring out in waves, all the fear and pain and frustration of the past months finding a target. Strong hands pulled her back, Marcus and Finn, holding her while Crane slumped against the desk. Enough, Marcus said quietly. We need him alive to testify. Kayla's chest heaved. Her knuckles were split and bloody. But she felt nothing. Bind him, she said. Take him to the palace. Lock him in the dungeons until trial. As they dragged Crane away, he looked back at her. You think you've won? You've just proven you're exactly what I said. A violent, uncontrolled animal who doesn't belong here. Kayla smiled, cold and sharp. Maybe, but I'm the animal who's still standing. The trial of Lord Matthias Crane lasted 3 days. Evidence was presented, documents, testimony, financial records proving he'd paid raiders to attack specific targets. The servant who'd found the letter testified. Survivors from the ambush identified raiders who'd been seen meeting with Crane's associates. The council had no choice. They found him guilty on all counts. Execution was scheduled for the following week. Kayla attended the sentencing, watching as Crane was led away in chains. He didn't look at her, didn't speak, just walked to his fate with his head high, still believing he'd been righteous. Outside the courtroom, nobles whispered. Some called her a hero for exposing corruption. Others called her a monster for what she'd done to Crane in his study. Rumors had spread despite efforts to contain them. Kayla didn't care anymore what they called her. Erin was recovering. The conspiracy was crushed, and she'd proven she could survive in this world, not by their rules, but by refusing to break under pressure. That night, she found Darian on the palace roof, staring at the city below. "You're not sleeping," she observed. "Neither are you." She sat beside him, their shoulders touching. "Think this is over?" "No, there'll be others, always are." He looked at her. "But we won this round." "At what cost?" "That's the question, isn't it?" His hand found hers. "You were magnificent today. Terrifying but magnificent. I beat a man half to death. He tried to kill your brother. I'd have done worse." "That doesn't make it right." "No, but it makes it human." He turned to face her fully. "You're not perfect, Kayla. Neither am I. But we're trying. That's more than most people here can say." She leaned into him, exhausted. "I'm tired." "I know." "No, I mean, I'm tired of fighting, tired of watching my back, tired of people dying because of me." "They're not dying because of you. They're dying because a broken system is resisting change." His arm wrapped around her. "And change is never easy." "Is it worth it?" "Ask me in a year. If we're both still alive and the border territories are thriving, then yes, absolutely worth it." She smiled despite everything. Optimistic. Someone has to be. They sat in silence, watching the city lights twinkle below. Somewhere out there, people were living, loving, struggling. And for the first time since arriving at the capital, Kayla felt like maybe, just maybe, she was making a difference. Even if it was killing her in the process. Darian's voice broke the quiet. "The Spring Summit is in 6 weeks. Leaders from all the territories will attend. So I'm going to make an announcement. About you. About us." He met her eyes. "I'm going to name you as my official consort." Kayla's heart stopped. "That's insane, unprecedented, politically disastrous." He smiled. "But I don't care anymore. You deserve recognition, protection, and I'm done hiding what you mean to me. The council will riot. Let them. I'm the Alpha King. My word is law." "Darian," he kissed her, silencing her protests. 6 weeks, Kayla. Then everyone knows. And whoever has a problem with it can challenge me directly. She wanted to argue, to point out all the reasons this was a terrible idea. But looking at him, at the determination in his eyes, she realized he'd already decided. And maybe, just maybe, she was tired of hiding too. "Okay," she whispered. 6 weeks. He pulled her closer, and they stayed like that until dawn. 2 people against the world, making promises they desperately hoped they could keep. But 6 weeks turned out to be an eternity when enemies started moving in the dark. The first sign came 4 days later, a message delivered to Kayla's chambers by a hooded courier who vanished before guards could question him. Inside the sealed envelope was a single line written in blood-red ink. "The border bleeds again. How many more will die for your ambition?" Kayla showed it to Darian immediately. He read it twice, his expression darkening with each word. "This is a threat. Or a warning." Kayla paced his office. "Someone knows about the Spring Summit announcement. Impossible. Only you, me, and my personal steward know." "Then your steward talked." Darian's jaw clenched. "I'll find out who sent this." "While you're doing that, I need to go to the border." "Absolutely not. If there's another attack coming, Then I send the Royal Guard. Not you. He grabbed her shoulders. Kayla, this is bait. They want you out there, vulnerable, away from protection. Or people are actually dying and I'm the only one who gives a damn enough to check.
She pulled free. I can't sit here in silken safety while my people suffer. That's exactly what I criticized you for. Your people. His voice went quiet. When did they become your people? When I decided to stop running from who I am. She met his eyes. I'm border-born, Darian. That doesn't change because I sleep in a palace now. If something's happening out there, I need to see it. He stared at her for a long moment. Then he sighed, the weight of leadership and love warring in his expression. Fine, but you take a full security detail, and Aaron stays here. He's barely walking. Exactly, which means he's safe. You're not. Darian moved to his desk, pulling out maps. The northern garrison reported unusual raider activity near Greystone Pass. That's 3 days' ride. If you're going to investigate, start there. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just come back alive. He kissed her hard, desperate. Promise me. I promise. It was a lie they both needed to believe. Kayla left at dawn with 8 royal guards, seasoned warriors who'd proven loyal during the Crane conspiracy. Marcus led the detail, his scarred face grim as they rode through the Capitol gates. The journey to Greystone Pass was tense. Every shadow felt threatening. Every bird call could have been a signal. Kayla's wolf remained on edge, hackles raised, sensing danger she couldn't yet see. They reached the pass on the 3rd day, finding the garrison in chaos. Commander Silva met them at the gate, a hard woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and eyes that had seen too much combat. Miss Varen didn't expect capital involvement. What's happening here? Silva gestured for them to follow. Inside the garrison, wounded soldiers lay on cots. Kayla counted at least 20, some with burns, others with deep lacerations. Raiders hit a supply caravan 2 nights ago, Silva explained. But these weren't normal raiders. They were organized, military trained. And they weren't stealing. They were destroying. Burned everything, killed the drivers, left a message carved into the lead wagon. What message? Silva led them outside to where the charred wagon remains sat. On the largest piece of wood, someone had carved words in crude letters. The Pretender Queen brings death. Kayla's blood went cold. Pretender Queen? Marcus muttered. That's specific. Someone knows about the summit announcement, Kayla said, or they're guessing. Either way, they're targeting you directly. Silva crossed her arms. This isn't about resources anymore. It's personal. How many attacks like this? 3 in the past week. All supply lines you personally approved, all with similar messages. Silva's expression was neutral, but her eyes held questions. Miss Varen, I have to ask, is your presence here making things worse? The words hit like a physical blow. Kayla had asked herself the same thing every night since arriving at court. But hearing it from someone else, from a soldier protecting the border, made it real. I don't know, she admitted quietly. But I'm trying to help. Trying and succeeding are different things. Silva wasn't cruel, just honest. These people are dying, and your name is carved into the evidence. Then I need to find who's doing this and stop them. How? By doing what I should have done from the beginning. Kayla turned to Marcus. Take me to the attack site. I want to see where it happened. The caravan had been ambushed in a narrow valley, perfect kill zone, limited escape routes. Kayla dismounted, studying the ground. Burned wagon remnants, bloodstains, hoofprints from at least 30 horses. They knew the route, Marcus observed, knew exactly when the caravan would be here. Inside information, Kayla crouched by the hoofprints. Someone's feeding them intelligence. Or they're watching the garrison, tracking movements. She was about to respond when her wolf suddenly surged, alarm and warning flooding her senses. Get down! The arrow missed her head by inches, burying itself in the wagon behind her. Ambush! Marcus shouted, drawing his sword. Raiders poured from the tree line, at least 40 of them, armed and moving with military precision. Kayla's guards formed a defensive circle, but they were outnumbered 5-1. Steel clashed against steel. Kayla drew the knife she'd started carrying, dropping into the fighting stance her mother had taught her years ago. A raider lunged,
She dodged, driving her blade into his side. He went down screaming. Another came from her left. Marcus intercepted, his sword taking the man's head clean off. But more kept coming. "Fall back to the horses," Marcus yelled. They fought their way toward the mounts, but raiders had already cut off that escape. Kayla's heart hammered. This was coordinated, planned. They'd been waiting. A massive raider charged her, 6.5 feet of muscle and rage. She barely rolled aside, his axe gouging the earth where she'd stood. She came up slashing, catching his leg. He roared but didn't fall. Then a horn blew, deep and commanding, and the raiders suddenly retreated, melting back into the trees as quickly as they'd appeared. Kayla stood gasping, covered in blood. Some hers, mostly not. 3 of her guards were down. The others were wounded. "Why did they retreat?" one guard panted. Marcus shook his head. "They got what they wanted," which was proof that you're vulnerable. He looked at Kayla. "They could have killed us all. Instead, they made a point." She hated that he was right. They limped back to the garrison with their wounded. Silva took one look at them, and her expression hardened. "This is escalating." "No kidding." Kayla was binding a gash on her arm. "They knew we'd be there. Someone told them. Or they've been following you since you arrived. Either way, I need to get word back to the capital. Darian needs to know." "Darian?" Silva's eyebrow rose. "Interesting that you call the Alpha King by his first name." Kayla froze. She'd been so careful at court, maintaining formality in public. But out here, exhausted and bleeding, she'd slipped. "Commander Silva, save it. I'm not blind." Silva's tone wasn't judgmental, just weary. "The rumors have been circulating for weeks, that the king's taken a border wolf as his lover, that he's planning to name you consort." She leaned against the wall. "I don't care what you do in private, but publicly, you're putting a target on your back, and apparently on mine too." I never meant intentions don't matter, results do." Silva sighed. "Look, I respect what you're trying to accomplish. Border territories need a voice, but you're fighting a war on too many fronts. Enemies at court, enemies out here, and now someone orchestrating attacks specifically to destroy you. What are you suggesting? Go back to the capital. Let the king handle border security. Stay alive long enough to actually make a difference instead of dying a martyr nobody remembers." Kayla wanted to argue, but Silva's words echoed the doubts she'd been carrying since the first attack. Was she helping, or was her presence making everything worse? "I'll think about it," she said finally. Silva nodded. "Do more than think. We've got word that a major offensive is being planned. Multiple raider clans joining forces for something big. If you're still out here when that hits..." She didn't finish. Didn't need to. That night, Kayla sent a coded message to Darian via royal courier. "Under attack. Multiple casualties. Intelligence breach confirmed. Returning to capital within 48 hours. She didn't sleep. Couldn't. The ambush kept replaying in her mind. The precision, the timing, the deliberate retreat. Someone was orchestrating this. Someone with resources and inside information. Someone who wanted her dead but was willing to be patient about it. Around midnight, Marcus found her on the garrison wall, staring at the dark forest beyond. "You should rest." "Should do a lot of things." Kayla didn't look at him. "Silva thinks I should run." "Silva thinks strategically. There's wisdom in that." But running means they win, means every person who's died believing in change died for nothing. Marcus leaned on the wall beside her. "I've served 3 kings. Darian Wolf is the first one who actually listens. And that's because of you. I'm getting people killed. Change always costs blood. Question is whether the cost is worth the outcome." He glanced at her. "You think it is?" Kayla thought about the medical outposts, the supply caravans, the villages that now had food and medicine, the children who wouldn't die this winter because someone finally gave a damn. "Yes," she whispered. "I think it's worth it." "Then stop second-guessing yourself. Own the choices. Accept the cost." Mwah, Marcus pushed off the wall. "And for what it's worth, you're the bravest person I've ever guarded." He left her alone with that. Well, they set out for the capital at first light, riding hard. Kayla wanted distance from the border before nightfall. But 2 hours into the journey, scouts reported riders following them. "How many?" Marcus asked. At least 50. Gaining fast. Damn, Marcus turned to Kayla. They're going to overtake us before we reach reinforcements. Then we make a stand. Against 50, we're 8 fighters and 3 wounded. You have a better idea? He didn't. They found a defensible position, rocky outcrop with clear sight lines. Not ideal, but better than open road. The guards formed up, checking weapons, preparing for what would probably be their last fight. Kayla stood at the front, knife in hand, watching the horizon. The raiders appeared like a dark wave, mounted, armed, and clearly not interested in negotiation. At their head rode a figure in black armor, face hidden behind a helmet that gleamed like polished bone. They stopped 50 yards out. The leader dismounted, walking forward alone, bold, arrogant. Kayla stepped out to meet them, ignoring Marcus's protest. "You're either very brave or very stupid," the figure said. Voice distorted by the helmet, impossible to identify. "Could say the same about you. I have 50 warriors. You have 8. Numbers don't mean much if you're leading them." Kayla kept her stance loose, ready. "Who are you?" "Someone who understands what you're too naive to see." The figure tilted their head. "You think you're saving the border territories? You're destroying them. By providing food and medicine? By disrupting the balance. The border has survived for generations on self-reliance and strength. You've made them dependent, weak." The figure gestured to the warriors behind them. "These are border-born, like you, and they see what you refuse to, that your reforms will kill our way of life. Your way of life is starvation and violence. Our way of life is survival without bowing to a capital that doesn't understand us." The figure stepped closer. "You were one of us once? Then you spread your legs for a king and forgot where you came from." Kayla's hand tightened on her knife. "Careful." "Or what? You'll fight me? All of us?" The figure laughed. "We're not here to kill you today. We're here to deliver a message." "Which is? Renounce your position. Publicly denounce the king's reforms. Return to the border and stay there." The figure's hand rested on their sword hilt. "Do that, and we leave you alone." "And if I don't? Then we start burning villages, 1 a week, starting with your hometown." The figure leaned in close enough that Kayla could see eyes through the helmet slits. Familiar eyes, though she couldn't place them. "Every death will be on you. The pretender queen who brought destruction in the name of progress." Rage boiled in Kayla's chest. "You're terrorists." "We're protectors. Protecting our people from your naive idealism." The figure straightened. "You have 3 days to decide. After that, the first village burns." They walked back to their horse, mounted, and the entire warband turned and rode away, leaving Kayla standing there with fury and helplessness warring inside her. Back at the capital, Darian listened to her report with a face like carved stone. "They're using the border territories as hostages," he said finally, "threatening to destroy the very people you're trying to help." "It's brilliant," Kayla admitted bitterly. "If I back down, I prove they're right, that I'm a coward who caves to pressure. If I don't, innocent people die and I'm the villain. There's a third option, which is, we find them first, hunt them down before they can act." "How?" "They're ghosts. They know the terrain better than any royal guard." Kayla slumped in her chair. "And they're border-born. Our people. How do I fight my own?" Darian knelt in front of her, taking her hands. "They stopped being your people when they threatened to murder innocents. Don't let them manipulate you with shared origins." "But what if they're right? What if my reforms are destroying something I don't understand? Self-reliance built on starvation isn't strength. It's survival desperation masquerading as pride." His grip tightened. "You're giving them choices they never had before. Some people fear choice more than they fear death." "Poetic. Doesn't solve the problem." "No, but this does." He stood, moving to his desk and pulling out a document. "I'm mobilizing 3 full regiments to the border, not to occupy, to protect. And I'm accelerating the spring summit, 2 weeks instead of 6. Why? Because we're not letting terrorists dictate terms. I'm announcing you as my consort in 2 weeks, making it official, making you untouchable." His eyes burned with determination. "They want to paint you as a pretender? I'm making you the real thing." Kayla's breath caught. "That's insane." "It's necessary." It puts an even bigger target on my back. It also gives you protection under royal law. Anyone who threatens you threatens the crown directly. Darian pulled her to her feet. I'm done playing defense. We're taking the fight to them. And if that gets people killed, then they die knowing we fought for them, instead of dying because we were too afraid to act. He cupped her face. I won't let fear paralyze us. Will you? Kayla searched his eyes, seeing the same desperation she felt. They were gambling everything on a single move, but doing nothing was also a choice, one that would definitely cost lives. 2 weeks, she said. But we need to find their leader, that figure in the bone helmet. There was something familiar about them. We'll find them. Darian kissed her forehead. Together. The next 10 days were a blur of preparation. Darian mobilized troops, coordinated with border commanders, and personally oversaw security for the summit. Kayla worked with Silva's garrison to establish intelligence networks, informants in border villages who might identify the raider faction. But information was scarce. The raiders moved like smoke, striking and vanishing before anyone could track them. And true to their word, on the 8th day, a village burned. Thornwick. Population, 43. Now population, none. The survivors stumbled into the nearest garrison with stories of midnight attacks, of raiders who killed everyone who resisted and burned everything else, of a leader in a bone helmet who'd stood in the center of the flames and said one word, reckoning. Kayla stood in the garrison command center, staring at the casualty list, and something inside her shattered. 43 people. Dead because of her.
This isn't your fault, Marcus said quietly. Isn't it? Her voice was hollow. They died because I wouldn't back down.
They died because monsters killed them. Don't confuse cause and effect. But she couldn't shake the weight. Couldn't stop seeing their names, people she might have known if she'd grown up closer to Thornwick. Border wolves, killed in a war they didn't choose. That night, she made a decision. She was going to find the raider leader, and she was going to end this, even if it killed her. The spring summit arrived with all the ceremony and spectacle the court could muster. Leaders from every territory gathered in the grand hall, nobles, warlords, merchants, governors. The room glittered with silk and jewels, false smiles, and political calculation. Kayla stood near Darian's throne in a dress she'd finally agreed to wear, deep emerald velvet that matched her eyes, elegant but not ostentatious. She felt like a fraud. Darian gave the opening address, speaking of unity and strength, of a kingdom that protected all its people. Then he looked directly at Kayla. For too long, the border territories have been forgotten, treated as expendable. That changes today. His voice carried to every corner of the room. I'm establishing permanent reform councils in every border region. And to oversee these reforms, to ensure the voices of the forgotten are heard, I'm naming a new position, border advocate, with full council authority. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. This position will be filled by someone who understands the border, who's lived its hardships, who's proven their commitment to change. Darian extended his hand to Kayla. Kayla Varen, will you accept this role? She moved forward on numb legs. This was it, the moment everything became official, irreversible. I accept, she said, voice steady despite the chaos in her chest. Then by my authority as Alpha King, I name you border advocate. He placed a silver circlet on her head, not a crown, but close enough. And I name you as my chosen consort, to stand beside me as we build a better kingdom. The room exploded, shouting, some supportive, most outraged. Nobles arguing, guards moving to maintain order. Kayla stood frozen in the center of it all, the circlet heavy on her head, Darian's hand firm on her shoulder. Then the doors burst open. Raiders poured into the hall, at least 30 of them, weapons drawn. Guests screamed, scrambling back. Royal guards moved to intercept, but the raiders were organized, creating a perimeter around the throne. And at their center stood the figure in the bone helmet. Congratulations, the figure said, voice echoing through the chaos. The pretender queen gets her crown. Darian drew his sword. You dare attack this summit? I dare many things, boy king. The figure moved closer. You've made your choice. Now face the consequences. They reached up and removed the helmet. Kayla's world stopped. The face beneath was scarred, older, haggard, but unmistakable. Her mother, Caraveran, who died of fever 7 years ago, who Kayla had buried with her own hands, who was standing right there, alive and furious, and leading an army of raiders. "Hello, daughter," Kara said with a smile like broken glass. "Did you miss me?" Kayla couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The room spun, reality fracturing. "You're dead," she whispered. "I was. Then I got better." Kara's smile widened. "Surprised? You should be. You left me to die, after all. I was 15. You were old enough to know better. Old enough to get help instead of watching me burn with fever while you did nothing." Kara's eyes, once warm, now ice, swept the room. "And now look at you, playing princess in a palace while the border burns, just like I knew you would. That's not... You abandoned your people for a crown and a king's bed, betrayed everything we stand for." Kara's hand rested on her sword. "So I'm here to correct that mistake." Darian stepped in front of Kayla. "You'll have to go through me." "Gladly." Kara's raiders moved forward, but before violence could erupt, Kayla pushed past Darian. "Stop!" Her voice cut through the chaos. "Everyone stop!" To her shock, they did. Raiders and guards alike freezing mid-motion. Kayla looked at her mother, at the woman who'd raised her, taught her to fight, then apparently faked her own death and spent 7 years building an army. "If you want to punish someone, punish me," Kayla said. "Not them. Not the kingdom. Me." "Oh, I intend to." Kara drew her sword. "Combat challenge. Ancient law. You and me, daughter. Winner determines the border's fate." "Kayla, no," Darian started. "I accept," Kayla said, because what else could she do? Fight her own mother in front of the kingdom? Refuse and watch people die? There was no good choice left, only the least terrible one. "Tomorrow at dawn," Kara said. "The old arena. Just us." She looked around the room with contempt. "Let's see if 7 years of palace living made you soft." Then she and her raiders withdrew, leaving chaos and disbelief in their wake. Kayla stood there, the silver circlet still on her head, her mother's words echoing in her mind. "You left me to die." Had she? She'd been 15, terrified, alone. She'd tried everything: herbs, cold compresses, prayers to forces she didn't believe in. But Kara had been delirious with fever, incoherent, fading fast. And when she'd finally stopped breathing, Kayla had buried her and fled with Aaron because staying felt like death too. Except apparently Kara hadn't died, had somehow survived, and had spent 7 years hating her daughter for abandoning her. "Kayla." Darian's hands on her shoulders pulled her back to reality. "We need to talk." But she barely heard him, because tomorrow at dawn she'd have to fight her mother to the death. And she had no idea if she could actually do it. Darian half-dragged her from the grand hall to his private chambers, guards flanking them through corridors that whispered with scandal and shock. The moment the door closed, he rounded on her. "What the hell were you thinking? What choice did I have?" Kayla yanked off the silver circlet, hurling it across the room. "She challenged me in front of everyone. If I'd refused, you'd be alive. That's what matters." "No, what matters is that 43 people died because of me. What matters is my mother, who I thought was dead, just walked into your summit with an army." Kayla's voice cracked. "What matters is I have to fight her tomorrow or watch the border territories burn." Darian grabbed her shoulders. "You don't have to do anything. We arrest her, charge her with terrorism, execute her for attacking the summit." "And turn her into a martyr? Give her followers more reason to burn villages?" Kayla shook her head. "No, this ends tomorrow, one way or another." "She'll kill you. Maybe. Or maybe I'll kill her." The words tasted like ash. "Either way, the challenge stands. Ancient law, you know you can't intervene." He did know. Combat challenges were sacred, binding. Even a king couldn't override them without breaking centuries of tradition. And breaking tradition now, with the territories already fracturing, would be disastrous. "Then I'm changing the terms," Darian said. "You can't... I'm the Alpha King. I can do whatever I want." His eyes burned with desperate determination. "The challenge stands, but the terms shift. Not to the death. First blood. Submission. Something that doesn't end with you dead." She won't accept that. Then she refuses the challenge and loses face with her own followers. Darian's hand slid to her face. I won't watch you die, Kayla. I can't. She leaned into his touch, exhaustion and terror warring inside her. What if she's right? What if I did abandon her? You were 15 and alone. You did what you could. But what if it wasn't enough? Tears burned her eyes. What if I could have saved her and I just gave up? Then you were a child making impossible choices. That's not abandonment. That's survival. He pressed his forehead to hers. Don't let her rewrite history. Don't let guilt destroy you before the fight even starts. Kayla wanted to believe him, but doubt had roots now, deep and poisonous. She didn't sleep that night. Instead, she stood in the training yard with Marcus, running through combat drills by lamplight. Her muscles screamed, her lungs burned, but she pushed harder, because tomorrow she'd face the woman who'd taught her to fight, the woman who knew every move, every weakness, every hesitation. You're overthinking, Marcus said after she fumbled a parry for the third time. I'm fighting my mother. You're fighting an enemy who happens to share your blood. He reset his stance. The woman who raised you, she died 7 years ago. Whoever's wearing her face now, that's someone else. You don't know that. Don't I? Marcus lowered his practice sword. The Kara Varen you described, she loved her children, protected them. This woman? She's orchestrating murders to punish you. That's not love. That's obsession twisted into something ugly. Kayla's throat tightened. What if I can't do it? What if when I'm standing there with a blade, I freeze? Then you die. And everyone counting on you dies too. Marcus's bluntness was almost comforting in its honesty. So you'd better figure out real quick what matters more, guilt over the past or protecting the future. He left her alone with that truth. Dawn came too fast. The old arena sat on the city's eastern edge, ancient stone, open to the sky, built for exactly this kind of combat. Thousands had gathered to watch, packed into tiered seats that circled the fighting ground. Nobles, commoners, border wolves, city dwellers, everyone wanted to witness the spectacle. Kayla stood in the waiting chamber checking her weapons. She'd chosen simple leather armor and a longsword, practical, familiar. The silver circlet sat on a bench nearby. She hadn't put it back on, didn't feel like she'd earned it yet. Darian entered without knocking. The terms are set, he said. First blood or submission. Kara agreed. She did? Kayla frowned. Why? Because she's confident she'll win either way. His jaw was tight. But it keeps you alive. That's all I care about. He crossed to her, pulling her into an embrace that felt like goodbye. Come back to me, he whispered. I'll try. Not good enough. Promise. She pulled back to look at him. I promise I'll fight like hell. That's all I've got. He kissed her then, hard and desperate and full of everything they hadn't said. When they broke apart, both were shaking. I love you, Darian said. It was the first time either of them had said it out loud. I know. Kayla managed to smile. I love you too, even though you're impossible and bossy and… Kayla. Yeah? When? She nodded. Then she walked toward the arena entrance, leaving him behind. The roar of the crowd hit her like a physical force as she stepped onto the sand. Sunlight blazed overhead, brutal and exposing. The arena floor was pristine white sand that would show blood beautifully, a deliberate choice. Kayla moved to the center, sword loose in her grip, trying to calm her racing heart. Across the arena, Kara Varen emerged. She'd ditched the bone helmet. Now she wore simple fighting leathers, her scarred face bare, gray-streaked hair tied back. She looked older, harder, like life had burned away everything soft and left only edges. But her eyes, those were still her mother's eyes. Still the ones that had read Kayla bedtime stories and taught her to track deer and held her when nightmares came. They met in the center. A referee, some ancient tournament master, stood between them, reciting rules Kayla barely heard. First blood or verbal submission, the man intoned. Yield is honored. Killing strikes are forbidden. Do you both understand? Yes, Kayla said. I understand.
Kara's smile was cold, though I doubt my daughter has the spine to draw blood from her own mother. Don't assume you know me anymore. I know you abandoned me. That's enough. The referee stepped back. Begin! Kara attacked immediately. No hesitation, no warm-up. Her blade came in fast and high, forcing Kayla to parry desperately. The impact jarred her arms. Her mother hadn't lost a step in 7 years. If anything, she'd gotten stronger. Kayla gave ground, blocking, dodging, trying to find rhythm, but Kara pressed hard, driving her back toward the arena wall. The crowd's roar became white noise. You were always soft, Kara said between strikes. Always needed someone to protect you. I was a child. You were weak. Kara's blade came in low. Kayla barely jumped aside. I tried to make you strong, tried to teach you survival. But you ran the first chance you got. You were dying. I was sick. There's a difference. Kara's next attack came in a blur. 3 strikes, each faster than the last. Kayla blocked 2, but the third sliced across her shoulder. Not deep, but enough to draw blood. First blood. The referee moved forward, but Kara waved him back. We're not done. The rules? She hasn't submitted. Kara's eyes locked on Kayla's. Have you, daughter? Ready to give up already? Kayla's shoulder burned, but she raised her sword. Not even close. Good. Because I'm just getting started. The fight shifted. Kayla stopped retreating, stopped letting guilt slow her blade. She attacked, hard, fast, using every dirty trick her mother had taught her. Low feints, unexpected angles, fighting like survival mattered more than honor. Their swords rang together, metal on metal, both women breathing hard. The crowd was screaming, but Kayla tuned it out. There was only this, the fight, the movement, the desperate need to win. Why? Kayla gasped between exchanges. Why fake your death? Because I needed to disappear. Needed to become someone the border would follow. Kara circled, looking for openings. The capital was gaining too much control. Someone had to organize resistance. So you abandoned your children. I saved them from a weak life. Kara lunged. Kayla sidestepped. I knew you'd survive. You always do. I was 15. Old enough. Kara's blade came in high. Kayla ducked under, slashing at her mother's leg. The sword connected, a shallow cut across Kara's thigh. Second blood. Kara staggered, but recovered quickly, rage flashing in her eyes. Better. Maybe I taught you something after all. You taught me survival, not cruelty. Kayla pressed forward. Burning villages? Killing innocents? That's not protection, that's terrorism. It's revolution. Something you'd understand if you hadn't sold out. I didn't sell out. I found a better way. By spreading your legs for a king? Kara spat the words like poison. Kayla's anger flared white hot. She attacked with renewed fury, driving Kara back now. Their blades moved so fast they blurred, both women operating on instinct and muscle memory. You don't know anything about him, Kayla snarled. I know he's using you, like all powerful men use disposable women. He loves me. He loves what you represent. A project. A noble cause. Kara's blade caught Kayla's and twisted, trying to disarm her. When you're no longer useful, he'll discard you, just like everyone discards border wolves eventually. You're wrong. Am I? Then where's he now? Why isn't he down here fighting beside you? Because this is my fight. Kayla broke the blade lock, spinning away. My choice. My responsibility. Your delusion. Kara advanced again. You think one woman can change a system built on inequality? You think the nobles will ever accept you? You're a temporary embarrassment they'll eliminate the moment they can. Maybe, but I'm still trying, which is more than you ever did. That hit home. Kara's expression cracked. Just for a second, something wounded showing through the hate. I tried, she said quietly. For years. Sent letters, made petitions, begged the capital for help. Her voice hardened. They ignored every single one, so I stopped begging and started fighting. By killing innocent people. There are no innocents, only survivors and victims. Kara's next attack was brutal, calculated. Choose which you want to be, Scholte. They fought for what felt like hours, but was probably minutes.
Both women were bleeding now, cuts on arms, legs, faces. Exhaustion pulled at Kayla's limbs, but she couldn't stop, couldn't yield. Too much rode on this outcome. The crowd's roar had shifted. No longer bloodthirsty entertainment, now something else. Respect, maybe. Recognition that they were witnessing something raw and real. "You could have come back," Kayla said, breathing hard. "After you recovered, could have found us." "And say what? Sorry I let you think I was dead?" Kara laughed bitterly. "You'd already moved on, already built a life without me. We were starving, alone, terrified." Kayla's voice cracked. "We needed you. You needed the idea of me, the mother who'd fix everything." Kara's blade came in low. Kayla barely blocked. "But I couldn't be that anymore. The fever changed me, burned away everything weak. It burned away everything human." Same thing. Their blades locked again, faces inches apart, both pouring everything into the struggle. "I loved you," Kayla whispered. "Despite everything, I loved you." Something flickered in Kara's eyes, pain, regret, something almost human. "I know." Then she headbutted Kayla. Stars exploded across Kayla's vision. She stumbled back, tasting blood, barely keeping her grip on her sword. Kara pressed the advantage, blade coming in fast. But Kayla ducked low, spinning inside her mother's guard, and drove her elbow into Kara's solar plexus. The air went out of Kara with a whoosh. She doubled over. Kayla could have struck then, ended it with a blade to the throat. Rules be damned. But she didn't. Instead, she stepped back, giving her mother room to recover. The crowd went silent. Kara straightened slowly, confusion and something else. Respect? Crossing her face. "Why?" "Because you're my mother. And I'm not you." "Weak. Maybe." Kayla raised her sword. "But I'm still standing. Are we done?" Kara studied her for a long moment. Then, shockingly, she smiled, a real smile, weary and almost proud. "Yeah," she said. "We're done." She dropped her sword. Submission. The arena exploded. Kayla stood frozen, unable to process what just happened. Kara had yielded. The fight was over. She'd won. The referee rushed forward, confirming the submission, declaring Kayla victor. Guards moved to arrest Kara, but Darian appeared first, waving them back. He crossed the sand to Kayla, checking her wounds with frantic efficiency. "Are you all right?" "I think so." Her legs felt like water. She yielded. "I saw." His eyes were bright with something fierce and proud. "You were magnificent." I was terrified. Bravery isn't the absence of fear. If you finish that sentence, I'm hitting you. But she smiled. Kara stood nearby, surrounded by guards, but not restrained. Darian turned to her. "Kara Varen, you attacked a royal summit, led terrorist operations against kingdom territories, orchestrated multiple murders." His voice carried across the silent arena. "Give me one reason I shouldn't execute you right now." Kara met his gaze without flinching. "Because my daughter beat me fairly. Ancient law says the victor determines the loser's fate." She looked at Kayla. "So what's it going to be? Death? Exile? Imprisonment?" Every eye turned to Kayla. This was her choice. Her mother's life in her hands. Kayla thought about the villages burned, the people killed, the terror Kara had orchestrated. By every measure, execution was justified. But she also thought about a woman who'd raised her, who'd taught her to be strong even when teaching methods were harsh, who'd been broken by a system that ignored suffering until it exploded into violence. "Prison," Kayla said finally, "but not solitary, not a cell where you rot forgotten." She stepped closer to her mother. "You work. Help establish proper supply lines to the border. Use your knowledge of the terrain to protect villages instead of terrorizing them. Prove that your revolution wasn't just about destruction." Kara stared at her. "You're giving me a job?" "I'm giving you a chance to actually help your people, instead of killing them in some twisted concept of protection." Kayla's voice hardened. "But if you refuse, if you orchestrate one more attack, threaten one more village, then execution. No trial, no mercy. Understood?" Silence. Then Kara laughed, sharp and disbelieving. "You really did turn out stronger than I expected." "Thanks." I think. It's not a compliment. Strength without ruthlessness gets you killed.
Maybe. But ruthlessness without humanity makes you a monster. Kayla turned to Darian. Those are my terms. He looked between them, then nodded slowly. So be it. Kara Varen, you're remanded to royal custody. You'll work under border advocate supervision to establish security protocols and supply infrastructure. His gaze turned steel. But Kayla's right. One misstep, and I'll personally put a blade through your heart. Romantic, Kara muttered.
But she didn't resist as guards moved to escort her out. Before she left, she looked back at Kayla. I really did die that day. The woman who raised you, she's gone. But maybe... She hesitated. Maybe whatever's left can still do some good. It wasn't an apology, wasn't forgiveness, but it was something. Kayla nodded. Maybe. Then Kara was gone, led away to whatever future awaited her. The arena slowly emptied, but Kayla stayed, sitting in the sand, letting the adrenaline drain away. Darian sat beside her, silent support. That was a gamble, he said finally. Everything's a gamble. She could betray you, use the access to cause more damage. I know. Kayla looked at her bloodied hands. But executing her makes her a martyr. Imprisoning her makes her forgotten. This way? Maybe she actually helps, and if she doesn't, she met his eyes. Then at least I tried.
That's becoming your motto. Better than gave up without trying. She leaned against his shoulder. What happens now? Now you're officially border advocate. The summit delegates saw you win a combat challenge against a legendary fighter. Darian's arm wrapped around her, which means they respect you, fear you, and most importantly, recognize your authority. All it took was nearly dying. Apparently. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun climb higher. Around them, workers began cleaning the arena, washing away blood, preparing for whatever spectacle came next. The delegates want to meet with you, Darian said. Discuss border policies, security arrangements, supply agreements. When? This afternoon, but you should rest first. Can't. Momentum matters. Kayla forced herself to stand despite her protesting body. If I show weakness now, they'll use it. You just fought your mother to submission. I think you've proven strength. In combat, not in policy. She offered him a hand up. Come on, let's go make some nobles uncomfortable. He took her hand, standing, but didn't let go. Kayla? Yeah? I meant what I said earlier. I love you. Her throat tightened. I know, I love you too. Even though I'm impossible and bossy? Especially because of that. She kissed him, tasting blood and salt and exhaustion. Now, let's go save your kingdom. Our kingdom. Our kingdom, she agreed. The afternoon session was brutal in a completely different way than the morning's fight. 12 territorial delegates sat around a council table, each representing their region's interests. They peppered Kayla with questions, challenges, demands, testing her knowledge, her resolve, her authority. The Border Medical Initiative is bankrupting regional budgets, Lord Crestwood argued. We can't sustain current spending. Then reallocate from discretionary funds, Kayla countered. Your region spent more on a single festival last year than the entire medical initiative costs. Culture has value. So do lives. Cut the festival budget by 30%. Problem solved. Crestwood sputtered but couldn't argue with the math. Governor Thane from the Eastern Territories leaned forward. The recent raid on Thornwick, your mother's work, we now know. How do we trust your judgment on security when your own family orchestrated attacks? Kayla met his gaze without flinching. I can't control my family's choices, but I can control mine. I fought her today, won, and now she's working to undo the damage she caused. If you question my judgment, you question every person who's had to overcome their family's mistakes. Thane sat back, mollified. The questions kept coming about supply routes, military deployments, resource allocation, diplomatic relationships. Kayla answered each one, drawing on months of learning court politics, weeks of border patrol experience, and years of simply surviving. And slowly, grudgingly, the delegates began to listen. Not because she was the king's consort, not because she'd won a dramatic fight, but because she knew her material, understood their concerns,
and offered solutions that balanced practicality with compassion. 4 hours later, when the session finally adjourned, Kayla felt like she'd fought another battle. But she'd gained something crucial: respect. "That went better than expected," Darian murmured as delegates filed out. "They still hate me." "Some do. But others are starting to see what I saw, someone who actually cares about making things work." High bar. "You'd be surprised how few clear it." He guided her toward a side exit. "Come on, you need food, a bath, and about 12 hours of sleep." "In that order?" "Simultaneously, if possible." She laughed despite her exhaustion. That evening, cleaned and bandaged, Kayla stood on a palace balcony overlooking the city. Lights twinkled below like fallen stars. Somewhere out there, border villages were settling in for the night, hopefully with enough food, enough warmth, enough hope to see another day. Aaron found her there. "Hey." Her brother moved carefully, still recovering but mobile now. "Heard you had an interesting morning." "That's one word for it. You fought Mom." "Technically, she's not Mom anymore. Just a woman who shares our genetics and a complicated history." "Still." Aaron leaned on the railing beside her. "You okay?" Was she? Kayla took inventory, physically battered, emotionally exhausted, but somehow still standing, still fighting. "I'm alive," she said. "That's better than I expected." "Kay, what you did today, choosing mercy instead of revenge, that took guts. Or stupidity. Sometimes those are the same thing." He bumped her shoulder gently. "I'm proud of you." Tears pricked her eyes. "Thanks." They stood in companionable silence, watching the city breathe. "What happens next?" Aaron asked eventually. "I rebuild. Help establish those border councils. Make sure supply lines actually reach people who need them." Kayla glanced at him. "And apparently attend a lot of boring policy meetings." "Sounds thrilling." "It's necessary. That's what matters." "Listen to you, all grown up and responsible." He smiled. "Remember when our biggest worry was whether we'd catch enough rabbits for dinner? That was 6 months ago. Feels like a lifetime." It did. Kayla had left the border as a desperate nobody with a letter full of rage. She was returning, at least in authority, as someone with actual power to change things, assuming she didn't screw it up. "I'm scared," she admitted quietly. "Of what?" "Failing. Letting people down. Proving everyone right who said I didn't belong here." "Then don't fail." Aaron's simplicity was almost comforting. "Just do what you've always done. Survive and drag everyone else with you." She laughed. "That's the plan?" "Better than any alternative." He straightened. "I should go. Healer said I need rest or she'll personally ensure I regret ignoring her advice." "She's terrifying." "All good healers are." He hugged her carefully, mindful of both their injuries. "Love you, Kay." "Love you too." He left her alone with the city lights and her thoughts. Darian found her hours later, still standing there. "You should be sleeping," he said. "Should be a lot of things." She didn't turn around. "Did the delegates reach any conclusions?" "Mostly that you're terrifying and competent in equal measure." He moved beside her. 3 regions formally signed on to the border reform councils. 4 others are considering. That's progress. It's a start. Starts matter. His hand covered hers on the railing. "Kayla, you did something today that no one thought possible. You took a situation that should have ended in disaster and turned it into opportunity. I got lucky. You made choices. Brave, difficult choices that most people would have avoided." He turned her to face him. "The kingdom saw that. They saw someone willing to fight for what's right, even when it costs everything. Pretty words don't change reality." "No, but actions do. And your actions today changed everything." Darian's thumb traced her bandaged cheek. "The nobles who dismissed you are reassessing. The delegates who came prepared to undermine you left impressed. Even the border factions are talking about negotiation instead of violence. Because I beat my mother in a fight? Because you showed strength without cruelty. Justice without vengeance. Leadership that doesn't require crushing opposition into dust." His eyes were intense. "That's rare. Precious. And exactly what this kingdom needs." Kayla wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that today marked a real turning point, instead of just a temporary victory before the next crisis hit. But she'd learned that hope was dangerous. It made you soft, made you vulnerable. Still, looking at Darian, at the man who'd risked everything to give her a chance, maybe some risks were worth taking. "Okay," she said softly. "Let's see if we can make this work." "Together," he affirmed. "Together." They kissed under the stars, two people who'd found each other in chaos and were now building something fragile and real from the wreckage. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new enemies, new obstacles to overcome. But tonight, Kayla let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she'd earned her place here. Not as the king's pet project or a token representative or a border wolf playing princess, but as someone who'd fought for change and won the first real victory. The circlet sat in her chambers, waiting to be worn again. This time, when she put it on, it would mean something, not just a symbol of position, but proof that even nobodies could reshape kingdoms if they were brave enough to try. 3 months later, Kayla stood in what used to be Thornwick, watching construction crews rebuild homes from ash. The village wasn't the same, would never be the same after what Kara's raiders had done, but it was coming back. Families who'd fled were returning. Children played in streets that had run with blood, and at the center of it all stood a new structure, a combination medical clinic, supply depot, and community center funded by the Border Reform Initiative. "Not bad for someone who didn't belong here," Marcus said beside her. Kayla smiled faintly. "You're never going to let me forget that, are you?" "Never. Keeps you humble." He gestured to the construction. 3 villages rebuilt, 12 more in progress. Supply lines operating at 90% efficiency, and you've only had 1 assassination attempt this month. Progress. I'd say so. The assassination attempt had been half-hearted, some disgruntled noble hiring an incompetent mercenary who'd gotten drunk and confessed before even attempting the job. Still, it was a reminder that not everyone had accepted the new order, but enough people had that change was actually happening. Governor Silva approached from the medical clinic, her expression less severe than usual. "Border advocate, the medical staff wants to meet with you." "More complaints about supply shortages?" "Actually, they want to thank you. Mortality rates are down 60% from last winter." Silva's mouth almost twitched into a smile. "Turns out medicine and food help people survive. Revolutionary concept. I'm full of those." Inside the clinic, healers showed Kayla their records, charts tracking disease prevention, malnutrition recovery, infant mortality. The numbers were still grim by capital standards, but dramatically better than 6 months ago. "We're saving lives," one healer said simply. "Thank you." Kayla's throat tightened. "You're doing the work. I just cleared the bureaucratic obstacles. That's leadership, making the possible happen instead of explaining why it can't." After the meeting, Kayla walked the village perimeter, taking inventory. New wells, reinforced walls, guard posts staffed by trained soldiers instead of desperate volunteers. Not paradise, but survival had upgraded from desperate to merely difficult. Her escort, Marcus and 3 royal guards, maintained respectful distance, letting her think. A child ran up to her, maybe 8 years old, holding a flower. "Are you the queen?" "Not quite. Border advocate." Kayla knelt to the child's level. "What's your name?" "Mira, my mama says you fight monsters." "Sometimes. Mostly I fight paperwork and stubborn nobles." "What's nobles?" "Rich people who think they're smarter than everyone else." Mira giggled. "Are they?" "Rarely." Kayla accepted the flower. "Thank you for this." "It's for making the bad people go away." Mira's expression turned serious. "My papa died when they burned our house. Mama cries at night." The words hit harder than any blade. Kayla swallowed against the tightness in her chest. "I'm sorry. I tried to stop them sooner. Mama says you tried your best. That's what matters." If only. But Kayla forced a smile. "Your mama sounds wise." "She is. She makes good bread now that we have flour again." Mira brightened. "Do you want some?" "Maybe next time. I have to get back to the capital." "To fight more monsters?" "To fight the ones wearing fancy clothes and pretending to be civilized." Kayla stood. "Take care of your mama, okay?" "Okay." Mira ran off, back to rebuilding a life that had been shattered. Marcus waited until they were alone. "You all right?" "No, but I will be." Kayla tucked the flower into her belt. Let's go home.
Whoa. Home was still a strange concept. The palace remained foreign despite 3 months of living there. Too big, too grand, too full of people whose motives she couldn't trust. But Darian's quarters, those felt like sanctuary. A place where she could drop the border advocate mask and just be Kayla. She found him in his study, buried in documents as usual. He looked up when she entered, face brightening immediately. You're back. How was Thornwick? Recovering, slowly. She dropped into the chair across from him. Met a kid whose father died in the fires. She gave me a flower and said her mama thinks I tried my best. Darian set down his pen. But you don't think you did? I think 43 people died because I wasn't fast enough, smart enough, strong enough to stop Kara before she escalated. You were dealing with a ghost orchestrating terror from the shadows. That you stopped her at all is remarkable. Tell that to the families. Kayla rubbed her eyes. Sorry, I'm tired and being morbid. You're human. It's allowed. He moved around the desk, pulling her up into an embrace. You've accomplished more in 3 months than most people manage in years. The border territories are stabilizing. Council opposition is crumbling. Even the nobles who hated you are grudgingly admitting you were right. Only took massive amounts of violence and public confrontation. Welcome to leadership. Nothing changes without struggle. She leaned into his warmth, letting exhaustion drain away. What about you? Still dealing with the southern trade disputes? Endlessly. Apparently requiring fair labor practices is economically unrealistic. His voice dripped sarcasm. Because paying people livable wages would destroy civilization. Want me to fight them? Tempting. But I think we've had enough dramatic arena combat for this year. He pulled back to look at her. Actually, there's something we need to discuss. His tone made her wary. What? The council submitted a formal petition. They want the Spring Summit decision ratified through traditional ceremony. Kayla frowned. What does that mean? It means they want a formal mating ceremony. Public, traditional, binding. Darian's expression was carefully neutral. Making you my official queen consort, not just border advocate. Her heart stopped. Queen? Yes. That's insane. It's politics. The delegates need symbolic confirmation. Visual proof that the border territories have representation at the highest level. He took her hands. But more than that, I want this. Want you beside me, officially, permanently. We've discussed this. We've danced around it. Now I'm asking directly. His eyes were intense. Kayla Varon, will you marry me? The room tilted. This was real, not hypothetical future planning, an actual proposal with actual consequences. I'm nobody, she whispered. You're everything. The nobles will riot. Let them. I'm the Alpha King. My choice is law. Darian, I love you. You love me. We work together better than I've ever worked with anyone. And you've proven you can handle this life, this pressure, this impossible role. He squeezed her hands. So say yes. What if I screw it up? What if I can't be what they need? Then we figure it out together, like everything else. He smiled. You once told a king to his face that he was a tyrant. Surely you can handle a wedding. Despite everything, she laughed. That's your argument? It's a good one. She looked at him, at the man who'd listened when no one else would, who'd risked everything to give her a platform, who'd stood beside her through assassination attempts and political warfare, and her own mother trying to kill them both. He was infuriating and bossy and so committed to doing the right thing, it sometimes made him blind to practicality. He was also the best man she'd ever known. Okay, Kayla said. Okay, you'll think about it? Okay, yes, I'll marry you. She pulled him down for a kiss. But if this goes sideways, I'm blaming you. Fair enough. He kissed her again, deeper. We'll announce it at next week's council session. Subtle. Efficiency. Why wait? No reason I can think of beyond crippling anxiety and terror of public scrutiny. Excellent. I'll have the ceremony master start planning. She shook her head, but couldn't stop smiling. This was happening. She was going to marry the Alpha King and become queen consort and probably face 1,000 new battles because of it. But with him beside her,
maybe those battles were winnable. The council session announcement went about as well as expected, which is to say, chaos. "You cannot be serious," Lord Pemberton sputtered. "A queen from border territories will bring perspective this council desperately needs," Darian interrupted. "The decision is made. We're here to discuss ceremony logistics, not debate my choice." "But tradition. Tradition said border territories didn't matter. We've established that tradition was wrong." Darian's voice went hard. "Anyone who can't accept this is welcome to resign their position." Silence. No one resigned. Kayla sat beside Darian's throne, wearing the silver circlet she'd earned, and watched nobles mentally calculate whether opposing her was worth political suicide. Most decided it wasn't, but Celine's remaining allies, diminished but not destroyed, whispered among themselves. Planning something, Kayla could feel it. After the session, Governor Silva approached her privately. "You've made powerful enemies." "I've noticed. I mean new ones. The merchant guilds are unhappy about labor regulations. The military council thinks you're too soft on raiders. And the noble families with border holdings see you as a threat to their exploitation systems." Silva's expression was grave. "Watch your back." "Always do." "I'm serious. These people don't fight openly like Kara. They use poison and accidents and convenient falls from high windows." Thanks for the comforting imagery." "You need to hear it." Silva lowered her voice. "You've accomplished remarkable things. Don't let arrogance get you killed before you can consolidate those gains." "Noted." But Kayla wasn't worried about assassins. She'd faced those before and survived. What worried her was the systemic resistance, the 1,000 small sabotages that could undermine reform without ever showing an obvious enemy to fight. That evening, she visited Kara in her cell. Not a typical cell, more like secured quarters where her mother worked on security protocols under guard supervision. Kara looked up from maps when Kayla entered. "Well, the future queen graces me with her presence." "Don't start." "I'm being serious. Congratulations." Kara's tone was almost genuine. "You've accomplished what I never could, actually changing the system instead of just burning it down." "Thanks, I think." "It's not a compliment. Change is fragile. Burn bright and fast. At least everyone remembers the fire." Kara tapped the maps. "Your reforms? They'll be undone the moment you show weakness." "Then I won't show weakness. Everyone shows weakness eventually. You're human." Kara studied her. "You came here for a reason. What do you want?" Kayla hesitated. "Advice. You spent 7 years building an organization from nothing. How do you make change stick when everyone wants it to fail? You make it too costly to reverse. Build redundancy into every system. Train successors so you're not the single point of failure. And most importantly, make people dependent on the new way before they realize they've adapted." "That's actually helpful." "I have my moments." Kara returned to the maps. "For what it's worth, I don't regret what I did. But I'm glad you're doing it differently. Maybe your way actually works." It was the closest thing to approval Kayla would ever get from her mother. "Maybe," Kayla said. "Guess we'll find out." The wedding ceremony was planned for the summer solstice, 6 weeks away. Those weeks passed in a blur of preparation, political maneuvering, and increasingly elaborate death threats. Kayla attended fittings for a wedding dress she'd never wanted, met with ceremony planners who took everything too seriously, and navigated noble families trying to curry favor through increasingly desperate means. But she also continued her actual work. 4 more villages rebuilt, 2 new medical training programs established, a border council structure that was actually functioning, giving territory representatives real authority over local decisions. The numbers didn't lie. Child mortality down, malnutrition rates dropping, literacy programs expanding. The reforms were working, which made the opposition even more desperate. The attack came 1 week before the wedding. Kayla was inspecting a new supply depot in the Western Territories when raiders hit. Not Kara's old faction, but hired mercenaries with no ideological motive beyond payment. They came at sunset, fast and brutal, clearly aiming to kill her specifically. Her guard detail reacted instantly. Marcus got her behind cover while others engaged the attackers. Steel rang against steel, blood sprayed across supply crates, and Kayla fought alongside her guards because sitting back wasn't in her nature. She dropped 2 mercenaries with efficient brutality, knife work learned from her mother, refined through desperation. A third came at her from behind. She spun, blocking his sword with a supply crate lid and driving her blade into his throat. He went down choking. The fight lasted maybe 3 minutes. When it ended, 8 mercenaries lay dead or dying. 2 of Kayla's guards were wounded but alive. "Search them," Marcus ordered. "Find out who hired them." They found evidence quickly. Too quickly, actually. A sealed letter in the lead mercenary's coat pocket, addressed to Lord Crestwood, outlining payment terms for eliminating the border problem. Kayla stared at the letter, rage building. Crestwood had sat in council meetings, voted on her initiatives, smiled to her face while planning her murder. "We take this to the king," Marcus said. "No, we take it to Crestwood directly." "That's not protocol. Protocol is how people like him get away with murder for decades." Kayla's voice was cold. "We're doing this my way." Besiet. They rode through the night, reaching Crestwood's estate by dawn. Kayla didn't knock. She kicked the door open, strode past protesting servants, and found Lord Crestwood at breakfast with his family. He looked up, startled. "Miss Varen, this is highly inappropriate." Kayla threw the blood-stained letter on his table. "Explain." Crestwood's face went pale. His wife gasped. His teenage children stared in confusion. "I don't know what—" "Don't lie. Your signature. Your seal. Payment authorization for mercenaries to kill me." Kayla leaned on the table. "Your only question right now should be whether I arrest you or kill you myself. You can't prove the mercenaries are alive. Well, one is, and he's very interested in a lighter sentence in exchange for testimony." Kayla straightened. "So here's what happens. You resign from every position, transfer your border holdings to Crown Management, and you publicly confess that you opposed reform because it threatened your profit margins. That's extortion. That's mercy. The alternative is execution for attempted murder of a queen consort." She smiled without warmth. "Choose quickly. My patience is thin." Crestwood looked at his family, at his wife's horrified expression, his children's confusion, at the life he'd built on exploitation now crumbling. "I resign," he said finally. "Good. You have until noon to draft the confession. Miss a deadline, and I deliver you to the king personally." Kayla turned to leave, then paused. "And Lord Crestwood, if you ever threaten me or mine again, I'll make you regret living long enough to try." She left him sitting there, broken and defeated. Outside, Marcus was grinning. That was terrifying. Good. Probably not legal. Probably not. But effective. News of Crestwood's confession spread through the capital like wildfire. Other nobles with similar plans suddenly decided cooperation was preferable to confrontation. The assassination attempt stopped. Kayla had proven she wouldn't just survive attacks. She'd destroy anyone stupid enough to try. The wedding day arrived with perfect weather and maximum anxiety. Kayla stood in a preparation chamber, wearing a dress that somehow managed to be elegant without making her feel like a fraud. Emerald silk, silver embroidery, practical enough that she could actually move. The silver circlet had been replaced with something more elaborate. Still a circlet, not quite a crown, marking her position without overstepping. Aaron helped her with the final adjustments, his hands steady despite his own nervousness. "You look terrified," he observed. "I am terrified." "Of getting married or being queen?" "Yes?" She took a shaky breath. "What if I can't do this?" "You can. You already have been for months." He squeezed her shoulders. "Kay, you took a broken system and made it better. You survived your own mother trying to kill you. You faced down nobles, terrorists, and apparently your own wardrobe choices. A ceremony is nothing. It's permanent. So is everything else you've done. At least this part comes with cake." He smiled. "Mom would be proud. The real mom, I mean, before everything." Kayla's throat tightened. "You think?" "I know. She always said you were stronger than you looked." His expression softened. She was right. About that, anyway. A knock interrupted them. Marcus entered, formal in dress armor. "It's time." Kayla nodded, swallowing her fear. "Let's do this." The ceremony took place in the grand hall packed with delegates, nobles, and representatives from every territory. Kayla walked down the aisle alone. No father to give her away, no family beyond Aaron watching from the front. Just her, making the choice to bind her life to Darian's in front of everyone who'd ever doubted she belonged. Darian waited at the altar in formal king's attire, black and silver, the crown on his head, but his eyes warm and steady on her. When she reached him, he took her hands. "You're shaking," he murmured, terrified. "Me too." "You're the king. You're not allowed to be scared." "Too late," he smiled. "Ready?" "No, but let's go anyway." The ceremony master began the traditional words, ancient vows about unity, strength, pack bonds stronger than individual weakness. Kayla repeated them mechanically, focusing on Darian's hands holding hers, grounding her. Then came the personal vows. "I promise to stand beside you," Darian said. "Not above you, not behind you, but beside you as an equal partner. I promise to listen when you challenge me, to support your work even when it's difficult, and to love you not despite your rough edges, but because of them." Kayla's turn. She'd written something elaborate, but now, standing here, all those words felt wrong. "I promise to try," she said simply, "to be what this kingdom needs, even when I'm terrified, to fight for people who can't fight for themselves, to never forget where I came from or who I'm doing this for." She looked into his eyes. "And I promise to love you, even when you are impossible and make terrible jokes and eat all the good bread before I wake up." Laughter rippled through the hall. The ceremony master smiled. "By the power of crown and pack, I declare you bound as mates, partners, and co-rulers of this kingdom." Darian kissed her, and the hall erupted in applause. Not everyone was happy. Kayla could see sour faces among the nobles, resistance that would never fully disappear. But enough people were celebrating that it felt real. She was married to the Alpha King. She was queen consort. She'd gone from writing angry letters in a forgotten cabin to standing at the center of power in less than a year. It was absolutely insane. The reception was overwhelming. Hundreds of people offering congratulations, making small talk, assessing her with calculating eyes. Kayla smiled until her face hurt, made polite conversation, and counted the minutes until she could escape. Finally, well past midnight, she and Darian slipped away to their private quarters. Kayla collapsed on the couch immediately. That was exhausting. "Welcome to royal life." Darian poured 2 glasses of wine, handing her one. "You survived." "Barely." She took a long drink. "How do you do that constantly?" "Practice. And selective deafness to things I don't want to hear." He sat beside her. "But you were perfect. Even the nobles who hate you couldn't find anything to criticize. Give them time. They're creative. Let them try." He pulled her against him. "We won today. Not just the ceremony, everything. The reforms are established. The border territories have representation. And you proved that someone from nowhere can change everything." Kayla wanted to believe that victory was permanent, but she'd learned that change was fragile, constantly under attack from those who preferred the old broken ways. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we keep working, keep fighting, keep building something better than what came before." Darian's hand covered hers. Together, she agreed. 6 months later, Kayla stood in the rebuilt village of Thornwick again, this time for a different reason. The community center was hosting its first major event, a harvest festival celebrating the region's recovery. Families gathered, children played, and for the first time in years, border wolves looked toward the future with something resembling hope. Mira, the child who'd given Kayla a flower, ran up with a whole bouquet this time. "Queen Kayla, look what we grew!" "These are beautiful." Kayla accepted them, heart full. "Your village did this?" "Uh-huh. We have gardens now, and a school. And the healer lady says I can be her apprentice when I'm older." Mira bounced excitedly. "Mama says it's because you fixed everything." "I helped, but your village did the real work." "That's what leaders say." Mama explained it. Mira's expression turned serious. "She says you're proof that border wolves can be anything, even queens." Kayla's throat tightened. "Your mama's right.
I want to be border advocate when I grow up. Help people like you do. Then study hard. Learn everything you can and never let anyone tell you where you belong. Kayla crouched to Mira's level. Deal? Deal. Mira hugged her impulsively, then ran back to her mother. Governor Silva approached, watching the exchange. You've become a symbol, you know that? Terrifying thought. Powerful one. Children across the border territories see you and think they can be more than survival. Silva's expression softened slightly. That's worth something. If we can maintain it.
The structures are in place. Border councils functioning, supply lines reliable, medical programs expanding. Silva paused. You've built something that will outlast you. That's legacy. Legacy. The word felt foreign. Kayla had started this journey just trying to help her starving village. She'd never imagined reshaping an entire kingdom's relationship with its most vulnerable territories. But standing here watching children play without fear of starvation, seeing families rebuild what had been destroyed, maybe Silva was right. Maybe she'd actually made a difference. That evening, she returned to the capital to find Darian in their private quarters, bent over another pile of documents. Don't you ever rest? She asked. Says the woman who just returned from a 14-hour trip to the border. Fair point. She dropped beside him, stealing the paper he was reading. What's this? Proposal to extend medical programs to the Eastern Mountain communities. They're technically outside kingdom jurisdiction, but practically our responsibility. Extend it. Those people need help too. It'll cost. Everything costs. Do it anyway. She set the paper aside. We're building something, remember? Can't stop halfway. He smiled. When did you get so confident? Somewhere between fighting my mother and becoming queen. It's been a blur. She leaned against him. Any new assassination attempts I should know about? 3 this week? All intercepted. You're very popular. I try. They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that came from months of partnership and mutual understanding. Outside the window, the capital sprawled, beautiful and complicated and full of people depending on them to make good choices. Do you ever regret it? Darian asked quietly. Saying yes to all this? Kayla considered. There were days she missed the simplicity of her cabin, the freedom of having nothing to lose. Days when noble politics made her want to scream. Days when the weight of responsibility felt crushing. But then she thought about Thornwick rebuilt, about children with full bellies and futures, about border wolves standing tall instead of bowing under neglect. No, she said, I don't regret it. Not even a little? Maybe I regret the assassination attempts. Those are inconvenient, she smiled. But the rest? Worth it. Good, because you're stuck with me now. Could be worse, could have married someone boring. Perished the thought. She kissed him, tasting wine and contentment, and the strange reality of a life she'd never imagined wanting. I love you, she said. I love you too, even though you're stubborn and reckless and eat all the good bread before I wake up. That's called payback. They laughed, and for a moment everything was simple again. 1 year after that first letter, Kayla stood before the full Kingdom Council, preparing to deliver her annual border advocacy report. The room was packed, every delegate, noble, and territory representative present. Some faces were friendly, others remained hostile, but all of them listened when she spoke now. Respect, earned through blood and determination. The border territories are stable, Kayla began. Mortality rates down 72% from 2 years ago. Literacy programs reaching 80% of children. Economic development initiatives creating sustainable local economies instead of dependence on capital support. She continued through the statistics, the successes, the ongoing challenges. No one interrupted. No one dismissed her data. They'd learned that her reports were thorough, honest, and impossible to discredit. But we're not done, she said, closing her presentation. 3 mountain communities still lack adequate medical access. The northern frontier needs infrastructure development, and we're seeing signs of organized banditry that requires coordinated military response. What do you propose? One delegate asked. Extended patrol routes, investment in northern infrastructure, and a mobile medical unit that rotates through remote communities. She met each delegate's gaze. It'll cost resources, But the alternative is watching people suffer when we have the capacity to help. Approved, Darian said immediately. Draft the implementation plan and we'll allocate funds. No debate. No resistance. Because they'd learned that fighting her initiatives was politically expensive and practically futile. After the session, old Duke Pemberton, who'd once called her an uneducated upstart, approached her privately. Queen Consort, a word? Kayla braced for another attack. Yes? I was wrong about you. The admission clearly cost him. I thought you were a temporary distraction, a project His Majesty would abandon once the novelty wore off. He paused. But you've proven yourself a capable administrator and effective advocate. I apologize for underestimating you. Kayla stared. An apology from Pemberton was like getting struck by lightning, rare and somewhat painful. Thank you, she managed. Don't let it go to your head. You're still rough around the edges and far too blunt for polite society. But his eyes held grudging respect. However, rough edges are sometimes what we need. Carry on. He walked away, leaving Kayla slightly stunned. Did that just happen? She asked Marcus, who'd witnessed the exchange. Apparently, hell might be freezing over as we speak. Should I be worried? Probably, but I'd take it as a win. Marcus grinned. You've officially gone from hated outsider to respected authority figure. That's character development. Or Stockholm Syndrome. Both can be true, Dad. That night, Kayla found Aaron in the palace library studying medical texts under the guidance of the royal physician. Her brother looked up, smiling. Hey, heard your report went well. Surprisingly, Pemberton apologized to me. Now I know you're lying. I'm serious. He actually used the word apologize. She sat across from him. How's the apprenticeship? Brutal, but good. Turns out medicine is 90% memorization and 10% not panicking when things go wrong. He closed his book. But I like it. Feels like I'm doing something useful. You are. Thanks to you. If you hadn't dragged me to the capital, I'd still be trapping rabbits and wondering if winter would kill us. You'd have survived. You always do. Maybe. But this is better than surviving. Aaron's expression turned serious. Kay, what you've built here, it's remarkable. I hope you know that. I had help. Stop deflecting. Take the compliment. He leaned forward. You changed an entire kingdom's trajectory because you refused to accept that suffering was inevitable. That's heroism. It's stubbornness. Sometimes those are the same thing. She smiled, warmth spreading through her chest. Her brother, healthy, safe, pursuing education that would let him help others, was proof that risks had been worth taking. 2 years after the wedding, on a cold autumn morning, Kayla received word that Kara had died. Heart failure, the medical report said. Quick and relatively painless. She'd been working on security protocols right up until the end, refusing to slow down despite her healer's warnings. Kayla stood in the prison medical wing, looking at her mother's body, and felt complicated. Not grief, exactly. Kara had been dead to her long before this moment, but not nothing either. This woman had raised her, taught her survival, given her the tools to become who she was, even if those tools came wrapped in trauma and abandonment. Are you all right? Darian asked, standing beside her. I don't know. Ask me later. Kayla pulled the sheet over Kara's face. She spent her last years doing something productive, helping build the security systems that protect the territories she once terrorized. That's something. It's redemption, sort of. Sort of. Kayla turned away from the body. Arrange a quiet burial. Nothing elaborate, just respectful. Done. They held a small ceremony, just Kayla, Aaron, Silva, and a few border representatives who'd worked with Kara during her final years. No speeches, no grand gestures, just acknowledgement that a complicated woman had lived, made terrible choices, and tried to do better at the end. Do you forgive her? Aaron asked afterward. I don't know, but I understand her better now. Kayla looked at the fresh grave. She was broken by a system that didn't care about suffering. Her response was violence. Mine is reform. Different methods, same anger. But yours actually helps people. Maybe. Or maybe I just haven't lived long enough to see my efforts turn destructive. She shook off the dark thought. Come on, we have work to do. Because that was the thing about change. It never stopped requiring effort. 5 years after that first letter, Kyla stood on the palace balcony during the winter solstice celebration, watching fireworks explode over the capital. Behind her, the palace hummed with celebration. Nobles, delegates, border representatives all gathered for the annual Unity Festival. Music drifted from the Grand Hall. Laughter echoed through corridors. The kingdom wasn't perfect. Probably never would be. There were still problems, still resistance, still people who thought the old ways were better. But it was better than it had been. Measurably, quantifiably better. Child mortality rates at historic lows. Literacy approaching universal coverage. Economic opportunity spreading to regions that had been forgotten for generations. And border territories no longer begging for scraps. They had representation, resources, and respect. Darian joined her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. What are you thinking about? How strange life is. 5 years ago, I was nobody. Now I'm... She gestured at everything. This, queen consort of the kingdom, border advocate, terror of corrupt nobles, occasional pain in my ass. He smiled. You've had quite a journey. We've had quite a journey. True. He pulled her closer. Any regrets? Kayla thought about everything. The fights, the fear, the constant pressure to prove herself. The night she'd cried from exhaustion. The days she'd wanted to quit. But she also thought about Mira, who was now 12 and thriving in healer training. About Thornwick and a dozen other villages rebuilt and thriving. About systems she'd helped create that would outlast her. About making impossible things possible through sheer stubborn refusal to accept that suffering was inevitable. No regrets, she said finally. Well, maybe the time you ate that entire cake I specifically asked you to save for me. That I regret. That was an accident. You ate an entire cake by accident? It was very good cake. My judgment was impaired. She laughed, leaning into him, feeling the solid warmth of partnership and love and shared purpose. Below them, the capital celebrated. Border wolves and city dwellers, nobles and commoners, all gathered under fireworks that painted the sky in impossible colors. United. Not perfectly. Not without friction. But genuinely working towards something better than what came before. And at the center of it all stood a woman who'd once been nobody, who'd written an angry letter she never meant to send and accidentally changed everything. Kayla Varen, queen consort and border advocate, looked at the kingdom spread before her and allowed herself a moment of pride. She'd done it. Against impossible odds, with no training, starting from nothing, she'd actually done it. Changed a kingdom, saved lives, proved that nobodies could reshape the world if they were brave enough to try. Come on, Darian said, pulling her toward the door. They're serving the good wine, and this time I promise not to drink your share. I'll believe it when I see it. They walked back into the celebration together, partners, equals, and proof that love and determination could survive even in the harshest environments. The fight wasn't over, would never really be over. But tonight, surrounded by people who'd once dismissed her and now couldn't ignore her, Kayla let herself enjoy the victory. She'd earned it. And tomorrow, she'd wake up and keep fighting for the next impossible thing. Because that's what wolves did, survived, adapted, and refused to accept that the world couldn't be better, even when everyone said it was impossible, especially then.